back in 2020. And as we grew, we found the need to organize formally. And so when we organized formally, we became Caribbean Church of Votes Inc., a 501c4 organization. Our vision, and we'll have that a little later, but our vision, which is on a sheet you're finding, it says, we are the heart of the Caribbean community that transforms political conversations. We are the go-to group that provides a unified voice and indispensable access on issues that shape our future. And with that, our mission to see that this vision comes to reality. Our mission is to engage, educate, mobilize, and advocate for the Caribbean community. Now, as people of Caribbean descent, many of us have come here seeing an opportunity in this country. When we come, we work hard, but for many of us, we dream of going back to our homeland. We come here to be part of the ecosystem, part of what's happening around this country, because we love this country and it's close and dear to our heart, as is our homeland where we're from. So when we find that all the work we're putting in is not being valued, it's very difficult to deal with. So as we're seeking to have an opportunity to simply just have equal footing for all the equal work we do, we continue, as the Caribbean Church Votes, to work on that process so that our contribution of values, our work is put into good use, and that we can make that choice of being part of America. So, with that said, we've had a new administration who has different views than we have. And that puts us juxtaposed to, what do? Many of us have friends and families that are being deported for no reason other than being an immigrant, or seeking the same dream that everybody else is seeking. And so we are here to understand what's going on. Rather than live in fear, rather than live in turmoil, rather than live in uncertainty, we're seeking to be in a position where we can understand, we can be educated, and we are able to respond accordingly to the circumstance before us. So this is why we have a lineup today of people fight for us for the bars. That'll be our attorneys. And then the next group will be those that speak truth to power and seeing that the laws are justly educated. And those are the advocacy, the people advocating on our behalf. So you've been here from those three groups this afternoon. Advocacy groups, attorneys, and elected officials. But before going into the program, I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the sponsors that made this possible today. So if you've seen in our flyers, we have different groups that have been supporting CGV, not just for this event, but throughout time. We have here, Rock Courageous Church. Can we give a round of applause for Rock Courageous? If you're Caribbean, we don't go small, we go big. So we have you big.
We big.
We have Panton Equity Partners. We have the Georgia Asian Chamber of Commerce. We have Savannah LLC. We have the Bahamas Association. We have Thompson Management Consulting. We have the Caribbean International Shipping. We have to be Caribbean, and we have, last but not least, J. Walker Buzz. Did I miss anyone? Did I catch everybody? And want to take a note of Caribbean football members here. We have Councilman Austin Thompson, football members here. We have Councilman Austin Thompson. One of members of the Article Board. We have Reverend Rodney. We have our secretary here, Attorney Kaysee-Saydee. And you have myself as the vice president. And what you'll find is that the group is composed of different people from the different nations. Yes. So we have everybody. We have Antiguans. We have Jamaicans, Haitians. We even have the Guyanese. We have every group as possible. And if you're finding that your group is not being represented, I'm going to tell you exactly what you're looking at. Go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and say, why am I not represented? And you'll have the answer right there. So, the way you change that narrative, there's a sheet over there by the door, has our logo and our vision in there. And it says, become a member today. And today's in red. That means it's emergency now. Okay? Become a member today to support us in the work. So scan the QR code, join. Our membership is very nominal. It's only, there's different levels, but the base level is at $40 per year. Okay? That's not even a cup of coffee a month. Okay? Especially in today's market. So, with that said, I think you guys tired of hearing me by now. I'm turning it over to Andrea Pender-Jack for the elected officials. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it is nothing less than a pleasure for me to be here representing the United Barbadians of Georgia and the Caribbean community at large. Our South American brothers and sisters, again, as John stated, there's some angst in the community after this new administration, and we're really looking to our representatives, our experts, our legalese to really give us some answers, help us be prepared, and help us navigate what we're experiencing. With that being said, I want to introduce our election panel. We do have another representative, so unfortunately she's not here, but for that, Austin has graciously stepped in, so we have to switch some stuff up, but nonetheless, we're going to make it a breeze. So Derrick Jackson is a fifth-term Georgia State Representative for the 60th District. His leadership is informed by his 22 years of military service and a decade of corporate experience. A dedicated community champion and nonprofit advocate, Jackson brings integrity and enthusiasm to his role. He is currently pursuing his doctorate in public policy at Layne University, his fourth college degree, demonstrating the commitment to lifelong learning. Representative Jackson is married to the Honorable Amir Jackson. They have 7 adult children and 1 grandson. Representative Jackson, if you don't know, is represents the 60th District, which is Carrollton, Temple, and Villa Rica. Welcome, Jackson. Thompson has graciously stepped in to be part of the panel this afternoon in the absence of Representative Scholfield. So, Austin, Representative Thompson, he's a councilman on the Lawrenceville City Council, and he will give his short bio.
Thank you. Peace and blessings, greetings to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. At this Immigration Summit, as we discuss some very important things about immigration communities and how we're dealing with the current state of affairs. My name is Austin Thompson. I'm currently serving in my first term as councilman for the city of Lawrenceville. 2023, I served as deputy mayor for the city of Lawrenceville. My background is diverse: engineering, project management, adjunct professor, author, community activist, and so on and so forth. You can find me by Googling my name, you'll see all that stuff, right? I don't like to read off my resume. But my most important thing that's near and dear to my heart is community affairs. How we are taking care of the people in our community. I know there are many representatives of the Caribbean community here who have known me. I've been in Georgia now for 33 years, and you know my heart has always been in the community. Working with different groups, individuals, taking care of individuals, and taking care of the issues and the challenges that are important to us as Caribbean people. But now, in a public policy role on the municipal level, I get to shape policy as an elected official for the city of Lawrenceville to make sure that those who have long been underserved and underrepresented have a seat at the table, have a representative at the table who will look out for them and take care of them. So my name is Austin Thompson, City Councilman, Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I'm glad to be part of this council. Thank you.
So just a quick piece of trivia Austin didn't share it. Austin, one of his mottos is, I have a personal goal to answer a higher calling for public service and contribute to shaping policy and decision making on the council. Austin was also a professor of mine some years ago as I was pursuing one of my degrees, but you didn't share that. Just had
She got it. She was a very good student.
Okay, so thank you both for your service. I know serving in public policy and creating and shaping policy is not easy. So what are your thoughts on the executive orders, especially those that impact immigrants?
Yeah, so again, good afternoon, everyone. Derrick Jackson, as it was stated in the intro. Great to be here with you all. When I think about what's happening with regards to these executive orders, first of all, we should not be surprised. We should not be surprised because we were out and about all last year talking about Project 2025. That 922-page document are the executive orders that you see today. Every single one. Unfortunately, he is executing executive orders outside of the legislative branch. Much of his 210 executive orders are unconstitutional. He's breaking the law. As one that has been in my 5th term under the Gold Dome as a state legislature, when you think about these executive orders, not only is he inflicting pain to all of our communities, but he's also firing a lot of people. Just yesterday, we had the CDC, for example, down at the Capitol, where he fired 1,300 federal employees that work at the CDC. How important is the CDC to us? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Because right now, we're dealing with a pandemic situation. We got the seasonal flu, that's what we have every year. Then we got the bird flu, right? That's starting to grow. Now, mumps, measles, those things that typically are suppressed because we vaccinate all of us, right? We all got a shot in order to go to the public school system. Now we start to see mumps and measles. Let's just take measles for example. Measles can kill you. It can blind you. It can hurt your immune system. And so if we do not have doctors at the CDC, those who study vaccines and bacteria, right? There's no other CDC like it is here in Georgia. There's no other state have a CDC. This CDC that's right here in our backyard solves world problems. His executive order took us out of WHO. Why is that important? Because it not only impacts the United States, but it impacts the Caribbean community, it impacts Europe, it impacts Africa, it impacts South America, it impacts all of us. Why is that important? Because right here, Hartsfield International Airport, right outside of my district here, gets 114 million passengers that come through Georgia. All of these diseases are transferred from body to body, human to human. So if you have a global airport like Hartsfield that's coming through Georgia from all over, and we don't have a CDC on the front line of defense, that's placing all of us at risk. And that's the reason why I call it a quademic situation. We all watched just simply 4.5 years ago, where COVID shut the entire world down. We do not want to be in that state again, ladies and gentlemen. And so these executive orders impact us from a healthcare standpoint, it impacts our education, it impacts our livelihood, it impacts our jobs, it impacts our security. And as a retired naval officer, I did 22 years in the Navy. This individual fired those who watch our nuclear weapons. As a retired military officer, he is firing officers, 3 stars, 4 stars, those who I served with. He just firing them without cause, no reason. So these executive orders are doing exactly what he prescribed last year in Project 2025. And so we can get more in detail with these executive orders, but they're unconstitutional, they're against the law, and there's a reason why 22 states, not Georgia, because we have a governor that doesn't care, and we have an attorney general that doesn't care, so they did not sign on to the lawsuit. But there are 22 other states that have filed 55 lawsuits against this White House. We never have to legislate through litigation. Litigation was not designed to legislate. That's the reason why you have legislators. And so we can talk at nauseam about these 210 executive orders that are unconstitutional, and they have already fired nearly 300,000 federal employees. Let that resonate for a second. 300,000 federal employees. So it's not just the CDC, it's not just USAID, it's not just Homeland Security, it's not just Social Security, it's not just the IRS, it's not just the FBI. He's firing all of these individuals that's designed to keep us safe. If you do not have the FBI and the CIA, we're going to have more terrorism. You thought 9/11 was something. So there's a lot we can do. And we are already starting to do that. The Caribbean community, the Black community, the brown community, we're already demonstrating we the people can do a lot. And we started with stop calling Target. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do.
Okay? And we have negatively impacted them $16 billion. Because if you don't like us, you do not deserve our money. And so these executive orders, how it's talking about DEI, there's no reason why diversity, equity, inclusion should not be part of the United States. Even God himself understood diversity was good. Because he made man and woman. Then he turned around and said, I'm going to make some brown people, black people, yellow people, green. He started making everybody. The Creator himself understood the power of diversity. I'm not preaching, I'm all day.
He's preaching. So Representative Jackson just shared about over 300,000 employees across the federal government, infrastructure, and fire. That includes immigrants. That includes people that are considered green card holders. In some instances, may not be American citizens. Councilman Thompson, at your city council level, what does that impact look like for you?
Okay, at the city council level, the municipal level, we have about 20-something% of immigrants in our city, comprising Africans, Caribbeans, those from South Asia, and other parts of the globe. We are a very diverse city. We are a city that prides herself in welcoming everyone from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, and we want to make sure that we are exercising that inclusivity for everyone. There are three branches of government. You have to understand this. Three branches of government. The legislative branch, that's where the laws are created. The judicial branch and the administrative branch. Once both branches, both sides of Congress deliberate and vote on legislation, it goes to the president for him to sign or veto. What the president is doing is overriding that entire process with his executive orders. An executive order, he said 210 executive orders, you're 30 days in. 30 days in out of a 4-year term. We have to really understand the gravity of what we're experiencing in this country. The very first, the number one executive order was to exonerate 1,500 criminals. 1,500 criminals who overran the U.S. Capitol. To do what? To kill the Vice President, hang Mike Pence, and to kill the Speaker of the House at the time, Nancy Pelosi. Now, these executive orders are being presented as good for the country. We're uncovering fraud, we're uncovering unnecessary spending, and we're cleaning up, we're draining the swamp, as they like to say. But when you really look deep into it, who is really running this country? Is it the elected, or is it the person who paid $300 million for a victorious result in the election cycle so that he can come in and run the country? So it is impacting everyone in the country. Doesn't matter what you look like, how you vote, doesn't matter what language you speak. We are living in dangerous times. In my city of Lawrenceville, we are making sure that we are looking after our community, especially our international community, especially for me as an immigrant coming from the Cooperative Republic of Guyana in South America. It is important for me to look after our immigrant community, right? The one thing that I think people really have to grasp, right? I understand that there are Trump sympathizers out there, and there are people. I was listening to Rachel Maddow the other day, and she was reading off a bunch of statistics. And there are people that still sympathize in the MAGA movement and sympathizing our president. He has supporters. We've seen the deportations. We've seen the videos of ICE agents, going into schools and businesses and removing who they identify as illegal immigrants. And deporting them, putting them on buses, separating families. We don't know how much more executive orders we're going to see. I don't even think there's a cap. I think there's just a run on executive orders. And this is how he's going to govern. He's going to continue governing. He's going to bypass. Even now, calling himself a king and stating that he is the law. He is the law. He stated this in an interview. So we're living in some very challenging times. And I give thanks to my sister, Representative Jamene Crockett of Texas, who is a strong voice.
Amen.
Who is a very strong voice. No disrespect to the other elected officials. Sometimes you can't play politics with everything. You can't play politics with everything. You gotta stand up. Even Auntie Maxine is out there. She was out there in front of the, I think it was the Department of Education. And she was questioning why is there a security guard at the door while you have all these 18 and 19-year-old computer scientists, computer technologists infiltrating our systems, having access to our social security numbers, access to our bank account information, access to our personal information. We are living in some very interesting times, and this is why we have to speak out and speak boldly about what's going on, because it's the only way that we're going to confront this elephant in the room, this beast. Because, again, it is incumbent upon us to come together to really make sure that we're doing what we need to do in order to confront what we're experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Thompson.
That
So
two
what-
more questions for Councilman Thompson.
Absolutely, go ahead, Mark.
And Councilman Thompson just reminded me of a couple of things. There was a horrific death that took place up in Athens, Georgia, right here. A UGA student by the name of Layne. That bill started right here in Georgia. And then it ended up in Washington, D.C. And then after the person that's currently occupying the Oval Office signed the Layne Act, inside that bill, they cleverly put a poison pill in there to not only to detain and deport immigrants and migrants, but anyone else that's along with them. So we could all be walking down the street, find ourselves detained and deported immediately over to Guantanamo Bay. Because after he signed that bill into law, in less than an hour, he opened up Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was stationed down at Guantanamo Bay. You do not want to be down there. It's an old naval base that we used to use for training some of our SEAL team and special forces and things of that nature. Now that has the capacity of holding 30,000 individuals. And they've already started taking individuals from Georgia down there. Their loved ones don't know how to reach them, can't contact them, and they're doing this all through the name of Layne Riley. Also in that same act, something that we did not do in the United States. You could not allow for ICE to go in 3 locations. They could not come into a church, a hospital, or a school. Those were safeguarded places for those who are here. You could not have ICE going into a place of worship, a hospital, or a school. Well, in that bill, it allows for ICE to now go inside of a church, a hospital, and a school. Okay? That's the first point. The second point is this. With regards to access our information, there are 272 million citizens right now. Elon Musk have our information. 272 million of us in this country, he has our personal information. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to your bank account, and if your bank account has 0, and you know you have some money, But if it's a zero, who are you going to call? Because he also wants to get rid of FDIC. That's the other piece that's in this executive order. If we remove FDIC, the very thing that we started in 1933 to safeguard our money in any bank, big bank, small bank, little bank, black bank, white bank, doesn't matter. The FDIC guaranteed our money. So now, if you go to your bank account and you have all zeros, who are you going to call to get your money back? You don't have any access to your own bank account information. And we don't know to what degree of the 272 million people that Councilman Thompson was talking about. But I just want to give you all the gravity of what's happening. We don't have to think that, well, this is not going to happen to us. There's 272 million citizens in this country right now. They have a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old with all our information on their laptop.
Just take that for a moment. You know, we rattle ourselves every day with, you know, keep trying to keep ourselves secure as possible, passwords and everything else, and remember, just to keep ourselves as secure as off of the dark web. And just think about it right here in our country, our second home, our adopted home. This is what's going on. So we're going to move on. Newsweek reported almost 38,000 deportees since Trump's inauguration. That's just what Newsweek reported at that time. Just like the 210 executive orders, that was 210, but it's 210 and counting. How is this impacting small businesses and the economy? Councilman Thompson, I'm going to start with you. I know that's kind of your forte.
Well, we have to think about human capital. We have to think about our farms. We have to think about our factories. We have to think about many industries that employ the immigrant community to work in many of their facilities and what that represents. You know, when you have large businesses like that, the ones I named, it takes a lot of individuals to really drive those operations forward. Small businesses drive the U.S. economy. 66% of all net jobs are created by the small business community. 30 million small businesses in the United States of America. And many of these businesses rely on the immigrant community. A community that has been demonized and called criminals and rapists. When our president ran the first time, he said, they're coming across our border, they're breaching our border. They're rapists, they're murderers. A man who himself employed immigrants in his construction business, and even if they were undocumented, he knew about it and overlooked the fact that they were undocumented. But after he got his edifices constructed, then he decided not to pay them or underpay them because of their immigration status. So taking advantage of them. So the impact on our small business community, what that's going to do, and we're seeing farmers complaining already. When you go to Publix, when you go to the farmer's market, when you go to Aldi's or wherever you're going, many of the fruits that you buy, the apples, the oranges, the grapes, the blackberries, the blueberries, the red berries, the strawberries, all the fruits you buy are picked by those who came, whether illegally or illegally, they come to the country. They're coming to look for a better life, just like my family did, right? But many of those are picked by immigrants. And we're seeing with the executive orders, it doesn't matter if you came here illegally or not. They want to deport everybody who was not born in this country. I am a naturalized citizen of this country. got my citizenship 5 years after immigrating from Guyana. I am also a target by the simple fact that I was not born in the United States of America. And even with all my accomplishments, they can still pick me up because I was not born in this country, and God knows where they would take me, right? So the impact on small businesses is significant. It's seismic because, like, for instance, in Dalton, Georgia, the carpet industry of the state, many of the workers in that industry do not even come to work anymore. They're not coming to work for fear of being picked up. Workers on farms and in other industries are not coming to work for fear of being picked up. So we really have to understand it impacts our small businesses. And you know, from that, it's not even just tariffs. Even from a deficit of human capital, we will see prices go up. I took a picture of the egg shells at Kroger, apologizing that we have a shortage of eggs. We have a shortage of eggs because now we don't have the human capital to get those eggs into the process and get ready for shipment to the grocery outlets. And because there are a deficit of eggs, of course, supply and demand, prices are going to go up. That's just one example. So it's impacting not just small businesses, but it's impacting larger businesses. And people are starting to wake up and realize. They're starting to realize the impact of this. It's seismic, and we're only 30 days in. And our small business community, they're going to feel that impact. Many of the bodegas, many of the shops, many of the grocery outlets. You look at all of the panaderias and the supermercados that are owned by Mexicans and Guatemalans and Hondurans. Many of those people might not even be able to open their doors and serve the community. The employees. So yes, it is a tremendous impact on the small business community, and it's going to get a tremendous impact on our pockets.
So Councilman Thompson, so Representative Jackson, just expand on that a bit more. What Councilman Thompson said, what does that look like for the economy here in Georgia?
Yes, I appreciate being on the panel with Councilman Thompson. So when you think about Georgia, we just signed a $40 billion budget here in Georgia. $40 billion, that's a big deal. We have $19 billion surplus. We all know what a surplus is, right? That means you can pay all your bills, and what you got left over is $19 billion. We're a very wealthy state. But you wouldn't think that because we are not doing the things that we need to protect over 700,000 small businesses. That's how many small businesses we have in Georgia, 700,000. We got a lot of small businesses that we should be helping to make sure whatever they do at the federal government level, we can protect them at the state level. That's the reason why, as I continue to say what I'm about to say, it's not only Trump that we have to be worried about. We also have to be worried about a guy named Kim. I know it's about to be quiet. I'm about to step on toes. This guy has not helped our communities at all. There's a reason why Black women's health in Georgia, when you look at all 50 states, we're ranked number 50. Let that resonate for a second. I'm gonna lean back before I do my Kendrick Lamar and lean forward. You're telling me states like Mississippi, and if you're from Mississippi, I don't have nothing against Mississippi. I don't have nothing against Alabama, but they don't have the money that we do to take care of our people like we can here in Georgia. They don't sit on $19 billion surplus like we do in Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida, or North Carolina, or South Carolina, or Tennessee, or Louisiana. Kendrick Lamar was right. They're not like us. Out of the 11 southern states, Georgia is number one in terms of financial stability. And that's because the 33% of us in this room position Georgia to be like that. We did that. And so if we're not doing what we need to at the state level to protect those of us in this state that position this state to make sure that our queens get the health care that they need, and that our babies get the public education that they need, and that we get the security that we need. There's no CDC in Alabama. There's no CDC in Florida. And so there's a reason why I'm saying Kim too. Right? 40,000 Georgians died during COVID that did not have to die in Georgia. 40,000. 40,000. When I was in the military, if you lose one person, you have to go before an arrow mass. If you lose one person, it could be because of a training, because whatever reason, one, as an officer, you will have to give an account. Now, thank God I never lost anybody in my 22 years. But that's just one person. He lost 40,000. You know how many small businesses went under during COVID? Under Kim's watch? A third. They didn't close their doors because they wanted to. So the economic impact, to address your question, is great if we do not do what we're supposed to do, from the governor to all of us under that gold dome. We have to make sure that our health care, our public education, our quality of life is all preserved. That's our responsibility right here. Separate and apart from what they're doing in Washington, D.C. That's why every state is its own sovereign entity. We have two constitutions, the Georgia Constitution and the United States Constitution. A lot of folks may not know that. Our minimum wage, for example, anybody want to take a guess what our minimum wage is? I know you know, you can't answer. $7.25. Nope. What's our minimum wage? Huh? Nope. Now the federal minimum wage is $7.25, but what's Georgia's minimum wage? Huh? $5.15. So yes. So we even told the federal government, and this is not new, it's been $5.15 for a long time. But y'all don't get angry enough. I have a bill right now that I introduced to take Georgia's minimum wage from $5.15 to $15, and then next year to $20, and then the third year $27.86. Now you're probably saying, well, Representative Jackson, why $27.86? I'm glad you asked, because that's a livable wage. That's why Georgia was able to have a $19 billion surplus, because we make the money in Georgia. You just don't realize it in your pocketbook, in your wallet. The reason why we have an affordable housing crisis, which is another big economic indicator for us, you know why we have an affordable housing issue? Because you can't afford it with $5.15 on the table. Increase your wages, and everything will be affordable. Increase your wages. Give people what they work and what they value. Right? From the council level, from the county level, to the state level, to the federal government. We control that. We control that. At the council level, they look at everybody from their staff at the county and city level, municipal level. Then the county is next. We control how much folks earn in our society.
So we hear that these.
I'm sorry, that's a long answer. Okay. But economics is my thing, that's what I'm telling you. Economics.
You two are a wealth of knowledge, but I do want to give the audience an opportunity to ask any questions. Anything that possibly I wasn't able to ask, I did have some more, but again, in the interest of time, I just want to make sure you stay succinct. Anyone in the audience have a question for Representative Jackson or Councilman Thompson? Anything that may not have been covered in regards to immigration status and angst that any family members, friends that may be feeling, anyone that was impacted with what we're seeing around immigration? Right here. Please, someone have a mic to get to this gentleman right here, if you could stand, sir.
You can speak louder. You can speak louder.
Okay, get one of your mics.
My name is Dr. Clark. I'm an immigrant permanent resident from 2016. I came in straight from Jamaica to Georgia. My green card expired 2018. I filed a petition. I got it renewed. I got 3 years left on my green card. But my concern is all of what's going on now with this thing about permanent residence. A lot of us are worried of when it comes to renewal of our green card. And then I get to understand that when you arrive at the airport, they're asking you to sign a document. If you want to sign that document, you agree to abandon your green card. Some people are not knowledgeable. You don't have to sign it. But what my concern is when my time for renewal, that is my concern. If they can refuse to renew my green card.
I think that's a question for us. Thank you so much. So that, we actually have a panel coming up with attorneys that will be perfect, and they can give you the educated answer on that. So hold tight, and make sure you remember that question so you can ask it again.
All right, but I just want to say, though, your concern is a very valid concern. One of the executive orders is to change how we look at visas and everything, and green cards, but it was pushed back a little bit because Elon Musk came out and said, well, wait a minute, hold up, y'all. Y'all gonna now impact my businesses.
Being present.
Yeah, with him. Right? And so we're going to see a huge fault line between Musk and Trump here pretty soon, because when you think about his corporations, how he's bringing in folks from, overseas. If you look at these young men that Councilman Thompson talked about earlier, those 8 or 9 young men, they're not all were born in this country. Okay? So, but it is a valid concern. The only thing I would add, just in case if I'm not here, is this. If all possible, if you should try to get a valid driver license. Here's the reason why you get a valid driver license. Because in Georgia, we have a law that allows for you to travel with your driver license. Because we now put a little star in the upper right-hand corner. Y'all probably didn't notice that, huh?
We know this.
Right? That's brand new. Because it allows for you to travel from state to state. They're very clever. That little star now allows for you to go from here to Alabama, to Mississippi, to New York, California, without it. Right. There's a reason why you're trying to make all these changes through your ID. Because if you look at the Project 2025, they're empowering law enforcement to stop you and ask you for your papers. When the last time we saw something like that in the United States, y'all?
Jim Crow.
Jim Crow, thank you. You don't have to be doing nothing. We can simply walking down the street on our way to get some chicken.
Right.
And they can ask us, where your cake is. So I encourage you, I had a few months, even me, I went and got my new driver license. Just in case whatever they're doing at the federal level trickles down to the state level. Because it takes a little bit of time.
My question is,
Thanks for that. If you can stand,
yes,
and get a mic to her. See on
my question is, suppose you do not get a driver's license, but you have, can you not go and get your ID? The Georgia non-driver's ID, isn't that just as good as we have a driver's license?
Right, great question. So there is another ID that we provide here in Georgia that's not a driver license, but it allows for you to vote, it allows for, it's another form of a government issue ID. And so in our laws here in Georgia, it doesn't have to be a driver license. It just has to be a government issued ID.
Okay, so we heard from Representative Jackson on what that law looks like for Georgia, and again, follow up in the next segment, we'll be hearing from attorneys. We have a question back here?
Hi, my name is Wayne Derrick. I'm a Trinidad and Tobago resident, but I'm a United States citizen. So I hear a lot of information about what the government is doing, all the negative stuff, but I don't usually hear what the officials on the other side, like you guys, I don't hear a lot of positive stuff out there in the news, like what you guys information that people should hear. So I hear all the negative stuff on the news, on social media, but I tend to less hear positive stuff. So what are you guys able to do to put more positive stuff out there for citizens or immigrants, undocumented immigrants to follow on?
Well, I can tell you, in the city of Lawrenceville, we have a marketing department, and we're constantly communicating through our marketing department with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about what we're doing in Lawrenceville. And I can tell you honestly, with ICE, what they're doing, the program with ICE and 287G program is to deputize different counties and police departments. It's almost as if they have a contract with these law enforcement agencies to identify and profile individuals, to pick them up and jail them, right, under the suspicion that you are illegal. In the city of Lawrenceville, we are not doing that. We can't do that when you got a Guyanese and a Jamaican Cuban sitting on the city council. You're not going to touch our immigrant community like that, and we have. This is why representation, that's right. This is why representation matters. Because we sat down with our police chief and the police leadership, and they are vehemently opposed to even being used as an agency for ICE to go and pick up anybody on the street. So they are not doing, we are not doing that in the city of Lawrenceville. We have committed to that. But, you know, the thing is, you've got to protect yourself as best as possible. Have whatever documents you need. Again, we're going to have that segment subsequent to our panel, and you'll be able to ask those panelists all the immigration questions, all right? And before we go, I just want to thank you for your service, for your 22 years in the Navy. Thank you for your service. I wanted to say that initially, but I forgot. Because even the military is under attack. Even the military, we see Pete Hegseth being nominated as the Secretary of Defense, and we know this story with Pete Hegseth. But we also know the line of individuals like Lloyd Austin and the Donald Rumsfelds and so on and so forth. The history, and then now you sort of muddy the waters with this guy, right? I think just 2 days ago, we saw a naval commander, Air Force commander, and Army commander, all relieved of their positions. These are the top generals, the top commanders. So even our military, we've seen the rescinding of security clearances from John Brennan, John Bolton, Leon Panetta, right? These were directors of the CIA and FBI. So even our military people are under attack. They even wanted to remove the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. At West Point, they are no longer honoring diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to recruiting African American students at West Point. So we're seeing an attack on our military personnel and the people who are responsible for protecting our democracy and our sovereignty. So I wanted to thank Representative Jackson for his 22 years of service in the U.S. Navy, because our servicemen and women should be respected for the work they do. Thank you.
I want to thank you both. We've come to the end of this segment. I'll just give you a chance in one moment, but we hear the gravity of what this new administration is putting into place, what the game plan is, and it's one thing runs through life. Be involved. Be involved at every level. At your school board level, where you may have children or grandchildren, at your council, city council level, definitely at your state legislative level. This is where the laws are made that impact you day in and day out. I have some homework to do for you, Representative Jackson, so I'll get back. But I'll just give our panelists one last chance to make just some brief closing remarks, and then we'll move on to our next segment.
Well, I definitely want to pick up where you just ended in terms of being involved. Because to the essence of your question, my dear brother, there's tons of information for the Georgia Dems, the Georgia representatives, and the Georgia Senate. But we got to do a better job, as the good councilman just mentioned, in terms of marketing that information. Because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation, so it's hard for us to discern what's real and what's false when we're all operating in that same space in terms of social media. Because not everybody watches television the same way, right? You're streaming, you're on Netflix, you're on Hulu, YouTube, and so everybody gets their information on so many different platforms and channels. So we just got to do a better job. I will leave you on with three numbers. You gotta let this resonate. 75 million of us voted for her. 75 million. 77 million voted for a convicted felon. That's 152 million that voted. But 89 million of registered voters did not vote. What was said or not said of the 89 million, what was it that they were not seeing, that the 152 of us were seeing? 89 million registered voters did not vote. Let me bring it to Georgia. 740,000 of us registered voters did not vote. 740,000. And so we got to be open and honest, my dear brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to make sure we hold each other accountable. This was not a question about the price of eggs. This wasn't a question, is she black enough? This thing was much bigger than that. This question is, do you want to be able to walk up and down this street without being asked, where are your papers? To have a job. To be able to renew your green card without the fear of being deported to an island that you cannot reach your loved ones. And so we got to do a better job in being open and honest, right? I just noticed my two colleagues, they're fighters under that gold dome with me. We got to be real about this thing. We got to be authentic. We We got to be open, and we got to trust each other and say, did you vote? Better yet, we're gonna go vote together. Now, my last point of clearing call is for all the sisters, because 92% of the sisters voted.
92%.
Right? Yes. 87% of the men voted. So it's a 5% difference. Want me to tell you how you can make that 5% difference? You all, you sisters, y'all know what y'all gotta do. You sisters gotta say to your boo, right? We're going down and vote together. That way you know you and your boo have voted. And I guarantee you that 87% of us men will slowly but surely come up to that 92%. Right? So it's gotta be okay to stand shoulder to shoulder with our sisters. I do that every day under the go down. Right? And so that's my clearing call to you all. We can win this thing, we can do this thing, we can protect this thing, but we gotta do it together. Because the injustice of one is the injustice for all of us.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. And
What's happening?
Councilman Thompson.
We've got to organize, we've got to strategize, we've got to mobilize as a community. And I ask the audience, don't just wait for your elected officials to make a move. You all can organize and strategize and mobilize. Within your communities, within your respective groups, because we need everybody. The talking points and what's being put out there, we're trying to uncover fraud, we're trying to uncover overspending and misappropriation of monies, and we're trying to bring about true democracy in America. Listen, they have nothing but a band of thieves, all right? Let's just call it like it is. Next up, Fort Knox. There's a plan to go to Fort Knox and see how much gold is being held in Fort Knox. This is the stuff, seriously, when you watch the news, sometimes you sit there, you're like flabbergasted because you cannot believe what you're hearing. There's no governing of America. There's a gutting of all of our federal agencies and everything, all the checks and balances that we've come to know to keep us safe as a country. The checks and balances are being removed through these executive orders. Not by Congress, but by executive orders. So what y'all keep that in mind. And it's going to affect the lowest level of our communities, like even at the municipal level. In our communities, we gotta watch out for our immigrant community. This is a state that elected 5 Nigerians in 21, excuse me. Representative David Courier, Representative Sheikh Nadina, Tish Nadisi, our Layne sister, who departed us, Phil Layne, and Solomon Alexander, to the State House. Immigrants from Nigeria who are shaping the laws of this state and making a valiant contribution. They're not criminals, they're not rapists, they're not murderers. They are businessmen and women who have a vested interest in making sure that our state remains the great state of Georgia. We are the #1 state in which to do business. 8 years in a row. And we have to make sure that we're continuing to protect our immigrant community and protecting our veterans, protecting the good people of America, and especially here in Georgia. So the only thing I leave you with, organize, strategize, mobilize. Go back to your respective communities, organize meetings, call your local congressmen and women, and let them know that you are concerned with the current state of affairs in this country, and you want them to do better. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this, the time for the segment to end has arrived. However, we have 4 elected officials that were requested to be here. We have the other 2 that have joined us. We're going to allow them an opportunity to say a few words. We're going to extend the time a little bit just so they have an opportunity to say a few words and share what they have with us from the elected podium. So, Madam State Rep, Scholfield, Tim Scholfield, if you could go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am State Representative Kim Scholfield, representing District 63. Numbers don't mean anything, so I start on Rolling Avenue, go all the way down to South Fulton, Union City. I've got the south side, the airport, and Bison area. You know, I know you've heard a lot of information. I'm watching the body language. And to my friend here, there was one step that he said that, the 3 steps that he said is one I'm going to add. And that is, he said, we've got to mobilize, strategize, and organize. Last step, you got to execute. Because what we do is we talk about all the stuff, we get mad, and then we mobilize, because that's what we did today. But as a result of what you've heard this morning, what then can you do? And how do you get it? So, you know, we know the problem. It's not that we didn't expect it, you just didn't expect to see it executed so quickly. So now that these things are executed, you're coming to the legislators for the state, because we don't control the federal. We're just worried about trying to normalize the state as best we can. You're saying to us, we all need to do something. Well, you know, we have been doing something before this started. And what we needed was help with the vote. Okay, we didn't get what we needed. So now, what is it that we would like to see done that you can partner with us, that we can execute on? That's where the strategy, that's why I came today. I really want to hear from you. What is it that we need? We're all afraid. I'm scared. But in this part of being scared, we've got to collectively feel how do we protect those who are afraid to go to school, to work, those that are afraid to go to the doctor. What am I going to hear from you that makes me say, okay, let's see what we can do now? So I'll stop there. I came to hear, not just to share.
Representative Senator Jackson.
Good morning, I'm State Representative Sandra G. Scott. I serve District 76 out of Clayton County. And I'm also the chairwoman for the National Foundation of Women Legislators, which is a bipartisan group serving all elected women across the United States. And I'm good to be here with you all this morning. And again, I know you all have heard a lot. And all I have to say is, it is time to get ready to fight. I need fighters. I need people that are not afraid to fight and stand up for what is right. We're in some ruthless times right now, and down in the Gold Dome, we're just beginning. It's just starting the floors is just starting to get wet. And so we're going to be all hands on deck. Okay. And, you know, when we came into session this year, we came in with a slap in the face. The first day we got there, doing the rules, we learned that we could only file 10 bills. 10 bills limit our ability to have our voices heard for our constituents and for the people of Georgia. Because I could get 10 people to ask me to write 10 bills within 20 days. And so therefore,
we're like a family.
It is being cut off. It is being cut off.
What a bill is, when you talk about bills, they don't know what do we do, what is a bill? So if you have a problem, you bring us a problem, they're saying we can only present 10 problems at a time. I can ask y'all, y'all got 10 problems, just in your whole life. Go ahead now.
Okay, all right, so you all have heard, what the bills. So therefore, we cannot drop but 10 bills for the year. They put a limit on it. Well, being me, Sandra G. Scott, I dropped 14 bills on the first day. I brushed through the bills that I had, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm a person, I usually have, first day of session, well, we used to pre-file bills, but they cut the pre-filing of the bills out. So the first day of session, I dropped 14 bills. But before that, we had Representative Viola Davis, she dropped 22 bills. She dropped 22 bills, so I said, wait, no. Viola had gone up and dropped up 22 bills, because we had already planned we were gonna drop more bills to see what the action would be, because we were not going to allow them to tell us how many bills we could drop. So Viola went up and she dropped her 22 bills, and she said, so can I drop my bills? They said yes. So she just had them all and laid the stack up, and she just left. And so she had 22 bills, and so, they came, yeah, the bills are the voices of the people. I have already said that. Bills are the voices of the constituents, because people have asked us to drop the bills. And so Viola dropped 22 bills, and so she came back and sat down and was ready to go. They came, they said, you cannot drop these bills. They tried to give her the bills back, and she said, no, I'm not taking them back. I have the right to drop my bills, so she won't take the bills back. So in return, they gave it to another legislator to give back to her, which was a violation of the law. I dropped 14 bills because at that time, they were waiting on us. They were waiting on us to come up with our bills. I dropped 14, so they said, well, you can only drop 10 bills, so we gonna only take 10 bills from you. So I had to stand up there and just give them 10 bills, and I got the other 4 bills back. And then I think Kim might have came up during that time when I was up there talking, and she started talking, asking them what's the process and the procedure, and why they only allowed us to drop 10 bills. Because our constituents come to us and ask us about dropping bills. So now y'all trying to shut our constituent voice and trying to shut our voice off. So as usual, us three, violating the laws and rules of the house on the very first day. But you know, it's all good, because I'm here for the people. I'm here for the people, and I am the voice for the people that I represent. So if I have 50 bills that I need to drop, I need to be able to drop all 50 of my bills. And so we have the right to withdraw bills within that time frame of the ones that we had. And so I said, well, I need to withdraw some bills. So I had to withdraw 4 of the bills that I had already put out, and still be at that 10 limit of the bills that I can have on the books. But to say all of that, to say this, we're still fighting it, because we are your voices. Y'all voted for us. Y'all elected us to be your voice. And they're trying to silence our voice. They're trying to silence your voice by telling us how many bills we can drop. So again, I would ask you all to write to the Speaker of the House to let them know that your legislative voice do not need to be silenced. Your legislators create legislation coming from their constituents, and the constituents need their legislation to be heard. We are your voices, and they're trying to limit our voice as well as your voice, and we cannot allow that to happen in the General Assembly. There's a lot of fights that we have to go through, but we need you all to fight with us as we're going through these fights. Because I'm not going to let them silence me. And I don't think any of my other legislators that are sitting here with me will allow them to silence them. So when we're in this fight, we need for everybody to join this fight with us, and that is by writing the Speaker of the House, letting them know that you all are not going to take the 10-bill limit. We will not take you all silencing our legislators to 10 bills. They need to be able to drop as many bills as we want them to drop. Okay, thank you. I stop here.
Can we have a round of applause for all our elected officials? State Representative Kip Scholfield, City Councilman of Lawrenceville, Austin Thompson, also member of CGB, State Representative Sandra Sandra Scott, and finally, State Representative Derrick Jackson. So now we're going to the next segment. So we're gonna thank Andrea Pinder Jack for having moderated. Do we have a round of applause for Andrea? So as we transition and we move to the attorneys, the people that work through the law, I want to say one quick thing. Understand something. All these people leaving the floor got elected by us. The question is, if they were in your district, did you vote for them? Did you vote against them? Or did you not vote at all? Because they are there because of your action as citizens of this country. Keep that in mind. They represent you. So now I will turn it, as the attorneys come up, I will turn it over to Privilege of Votes President, Jason Walker. So everyone, round of applause for the President of CGV, Jason Walker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. By the way, Representative Scott, Representative Scholfield, Representative Scott and Representative Scholfield, I'm going to ask both of you to stick around and be a part of the activist panel later on. All right? Please make sure Representative Scott hears that. All right, Deborah? Thank you. Now, when it comes to the immigration conversation, hello everybody, can we have one night? Everybody will have time to talk to each other later. We need to move on with the program. One night, everybody. Andrea. One night. Thank you guys. Representative Scott, Representative Scholfield, I will be asking you guys to stay over for the activist panel later, okay? All right, everybody. Yes, my name is Jason Walker. I'm the president of Saturday Georgia Vote. I want to thank all of you for coming here to be a part of improving our community. And I just want to remind everybody before we get started that Caribbean Georgia Votes mission reads that we are the heartbeat of the Caribbean community that transforms political conversations. We are the go-to group that provides a unified voice and indispensable access on issues that shape our future. Ladies and gentlemen, we are an advocacy group, and we advocate for the things that impact the Caribbean community. These executive orders that have been put in front of us by the current presider of the White House negatively impacts any immigrant family, no matter the status, whether they be citizen, whether they be immigrant, whether they work on visa, refugee, or asylum, or any other state that we know exists for immigrant families. So this is a serious thing. And so here we're talking about things that impact law. The way we can fight, the way we can protect ourselves is understanding exactly how the law works, what exactly is happening. Some things were mentioned up here that only a lawyer can tell us. So we're been blessed that today in attendance we have some of the brightest, charismatic, wonderful, hardworking lawyers who have been doing work in Georgia for the longest time. And I do believe every single lawyer on the panel is an immigrant. Am I correct? Okay, well, at least you're part of an immigrant family. Huh? Immigrant Jews. All right, so we have on the panel today Jamene Christian, managing attorney for the fiancé spouse visa lawyer group. Having started her legal career in British Connecticut as an in-house counsel for family design build firm, Jamene soon realized that her true passion was lawyering in the public interest. As a 13th generation, wow, U.S. citizen by birth, married to a Caribbean immigrant, and knew she was in an immigrant family, who she petitioned 4 years ago by choice. I like the way she says by choice. Practicing immigration law is a natural field. Jamene is the founder and managing attorney of Finance House Legal Law, LLC, headquartered in Atlanta with a satellite office in Stamford, Connecticut. It is a full-service family immigration law practice. She's a past speaker at American Immigration Law Association conferences, as well as serving in leadership positions at the organization. Jamene has also provided pro bono services at community immigration consumer law events. She's a former parent, association member, volunteer at the Children's School and the Westminster School, and former board member at the Atlanta Young Citizens. Licensed in Georgia and Connecticut, Jamene is a 5-star verified immigration law expert on the popular online portal JustAnswer.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Jamene. So, the next one I'd like to introduce kind of have a bias. She's been connected to my family before I was born. But she's charismatic. There are legend stories about her taking people being deported off the plane and bringing them back. When she gets in social media, people listen, she has that vocabulary in public. Marsha W. Mignott. By the way, before even going to her introduction, she wasn't feeling well recently, had to rush to the hospital this week. And she's here to serve you Saturday. Marsha W. Mignott Squire, the managing partner for the Mignott Law Group, LLC, based in Tucker, Georgia, and dedicates her practice to helping families with issues involving criminal law, family law, immigration law, personal injury, wrongful death, and civil litigation. Cases throughout the state of Georgia. Her efforts over more than 2 decades have produced numerous verdicts in favor of her clients. She is a graduate of Mercer University in Atlanta. She got her MBA at Mercer University in Macon, and she got her Juris Doctor at John Marshall Law School here in Atlanta, Georgia. She has been admitted to practice law before the following courts: the Superior Court of Georgia, the Court of Appeals of Georgia, the Supreme Court of Georgia, U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, U.S. District Court of the Middle District of Georgia, U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, Supreme Court of the United States, and she's a legal analyst on Court TV and co-host of the Legal Court podcast on her YouTube channel. Please give a round of applause to Attorney Marsha Mignott. Now, this young lady, everybody here on the panel, except for her, hails from the Western Hemisphere. This young lady hails from the Eastern Hemisphere. And she's a rising superstar. Attorney Patrice Kaysee-Saydee. Patience Kaysee-Saydee was born in Liberia and relocated to the United States with her mother at the tender age of 8. She graduated from Florida State University, magna cum laude. Magna cum laude. With a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and International Affairs. Driven by her passion for immigration reform, advocacy, justice, and civil rights, she pursued a legal education at Loyola University in New Orleans College of Law. She graduated, cum laude, with her JD ranking in the top 50% of her graduating class. After relocating to Atlanta, she worked as an associate of the law firm until 2019. Then she founded Kaysee Legal Group LLC, specializing in real estate and immigration law. She is also a licensed real estate agent and notary. Attorney Saydee is deeply committed to giving back to her community. She generously offers pro bono legal services to nonprofit organizations and serves on the boards of several such organizations. Beyond her professional accomplishments, she's a loving wife, I love that, and a devoted mother. She attributes her success to God, her family, and her relentless desire to reshape the narrative surrounding Black African women. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a call for our church. Now the next one is a long time for her. She was always involved when it came to the Bayesian community, things that are needed in the community, her family, instrumental in things that have been happening in Atlanta for a long time. She gets involved, she's been involved. I've seen her do this from the 90s, so that's literally a while still looking at she's 20. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Bernadine Layne, attorney at law at the Layne Law Group. She got her MA/BA with honors at Northeastern University, Boston. She got her MA/JD at Harvard Law School. Of course, she works with the Layne Law Firm over there on Paul's Ferry Road, and her specialty is immigration and personal law. She is a member of the Georgia Bar, the Massachusetts Bar, the District of Columbia Bar, the U.S. Supreme Court Bar. Her activities include, and memberships include, the American Immigration Law Association, Georgia Trial Law Association, Georgia Association of Black Women Lawyers, Atlanta Bar Association, Barbados Association of Atlanta, United Barbadians in Georgia, board member of the Layne Bryan Foundation, board member of the MAG Preventive Health, by the way, a very important organization, former board member of the Picture of Health Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, the talented lawyers that are coming today, please give them a round of applause. All right, we know why we're here. We're here because of the executive orders that they're throwing out like candy on right after MLK's birthday. So, I'm going to start things off by asking our... Huh? Well, I'm going to have to ask you to introduce yourself if you don't mind. You all need to I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. This name has been going through the Atlanta community for a very long time. It completely belies your picture, because I know when I was on the radio back in, everybody was talking about Skeeter Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to attorney Skeeter Joe, who is the compassionate founder and managing attorney of law firm LLC, graduating from Seton Hall School of Law. She established the firm in 2003 with an unwavering commitment to guiding clients through the complexities of both immigration and trademark laws. In recognition of her dedicated community work, attorney Skeeter Joe received a resolution from the Georgia House of Representatives commending her for her contributions, fueled by family, friends, good food, and Zumba. Her journey is driven by a profound passion for making differences in the lives of those navigating these intricate legal pathways. Boasting over 2 decades of experience, attorney Skeeter Joe brings a wealth of experience to the table. Her impressive track record spans across a whole spectrum of cases encompassing both immigrant and non-immigrant visa matters within the United States and abroad. Attorney Skeeter Joe has cultivated strong relationships with key Caribbean consulates and embassies, a testament to her dedication to serving Irish communities. Her extensive repertoire includes handling adjustment of states, green card, applications, facilitating naturalization processes, navigating fraud waivers, advocating for clients in cancellation of renewal proceedings, representing clients in appeals, asylum cases, deportation, defense, and empowering individuals through VAWA cases, Violence Against Women Act. At Francois Law Firm LLC, we wholeheartedly believe in the power of compassionate and dedicated representation. Attorney Skeeter Joe personalized approach ensures that each client receives attention, respect, and advocacy they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, the famous Skeeter Joe. Okay, so you see you at the top of the team. See, we brought the Avengers to come talk to you, right? So, Donald Trump threw out all of these executive orders. Last time I was trying to listen and I realized we don't have a census, but there's so many. So here's what I'm going to ask each lawyer to first respond, going down the line, starting out with Attorney President. What is your perspective of the truckload of executive orders that the orange guy in the White House has put on all of us? And by the way, just in case anybody doesn't know what they're doing in terms of our Caribbean community, this week he rescinded the extension for Haitian TPS, temporary protected status. So in 6 months, they could be undocumented in the United States. That happened this week. Last week it was 600,000 Venezuelans. This is serious, people. Attorneys.
Well, yeah, I address this often in my practice. As you can all sit there and say, these are unusual times. Questions are coming hard and fast. In terms of what this administration is attempting to do, I think what they're attempting to do is instill fear. I think that's the primary objective. And when you instill fear, you have chaos. When you have chaos, you don't have organization. It's the exact opposite of organization is chaos. So what he's doing is every day coming at us with new information, new executive orders, donating a crown, want to be king, but we still are governed by a body of law. We're still governed by the Constitution. And when I think about executive orders, the first one that comes to mind is the birthright citizenship attempt to violate birthright citizenship. And as I explained to so many clients, that's a nothing burger. I don't know if people still use that expression. But that's not going to happen because that's constitutional, founded in the Constitution based on the freedom of enslaved people. If you're born here in the United States, if you're naturalized, you are a U.S. citizen. The only way that can go away is through the House, the Congress, the Senate. It's complicated, it's time consuming. The U.S. will only be in office for 4 years. So it would take much longer for that to happen. So I'll pass it on to others, but my thing is this: he's instilling fear, and you can't let that rule the day. You can't let that rule the day.
Thank you. I agree with everything that you said about fear. Do not be afraid. Stand your ground. Become a U.S. citizen, sir. Had the question earlier. Become a U.S. citizen. Don't worry about the green card. You can do that. I mean, you're not a criminal. Have a lot of criminal convictions, but citizenship is the key. You can vote, and you heard from these representatives, it's key. Voting at a local level, and in many ways, I think some of the Democrats like me were a little bit asleep at the wheel and let the Republicans take over at the local level. We have to change that. The other point that I would make, if you know any undocumented people, do not let them self-employ. Believe that's part of your strategy, as you said, fear, chaos. If you're undocumented and you leave voluntarily, it's very hard for us to do anything to get you back.
Attorney Layne, what about those that are economically challenged? Is it like $700 something to file papers for immigration? That's not possible. The cost?
For the cost?
Yeah, for the people finding privileges.
Yeah, costs keep going up and up. There are certain organizations that are helping with private fees, and I think it's loans mostly, public and grants. But there are waivers that you can get depending on your income. So don't feel that you can't afford it. Look into it. We give free consultations. Many people give free consultations these days. We can tell you how much everything costs, give you some ideas on how to finance it.
I wanted to share
share my Know Your Rights points in response to what Jason had said. And a lot of individuals don't know their rights. And one of the lists, I made a list, you can refuse to answer questions about your immigrant status. A lot of people don't understand that. You don't have to answer. You have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. You can refuse to consent to the search of your person, your home, or your car. Law enforcement, a lot of times, will ask you, can I search? When you hear the word, can I, that means you have a right that the person is seeking permission from you to take away. You don't have to give up that right. It does not mean that the legal authority does not have problem. If they have probable cause, they can still search that vehicle, but it protects you for immigration attorneys such as myself and for other attorneys to fight that your rights were unlawfully taken. If you say yes to the search, then you have waived that right, and it makes it more difficult for us to assist you if the person violates your rights. You can speak to a lawyer before answering questions, so you can ask for an attorney, or you can contact an attorney who you have put in place so that if these circumstances happen to you, you are ready. You can contact your consulate at the U.S. if you are not a U.S. citizen. You can request a copy of your immigration papers. You can request to make a free call to family or friends if you're taken into custody. You can you can create a safety plan. And the biggest one for me that I would like to share is do not sign anything. Do not sign anything. The reason why, if you sign something without consulting an attorney or an attorney having an opportunity to look at what you're signing, you could be waiving valuable legal rights, due process rights, that you cannot get back if you have waived them. So those would be my pointers for these executive orders that are going into place. But the biggest solution, because I'm a solution kind of person, we are clear as to what the problems are. In fact, I believe the numbers thrown out earlier on the previous panel was that 75 million of us knew that this was coming. It's the difference between the 75 million and the 79 or the 77 million that did not realize what was at stake. Sir, to answer your question about your permanent residency, my suggestion is as soon as you are eligible, which is 5 years after becoming a permanent resident, you should apply for your citizenship. You should not wait until it's time to renew the card, because the card is valid for 10 years. And if you're eligible for citizenship within 5 years, there's no need to wait until it's time to renew your permanent resident card before you go in for your citizenship. Assuming that you have no criminal history that would bar you from gaining your citizenship, then that would be my suggestion to you, is not to wait until 10 years, is to go ahead and apply for citizenship.
I just want to add that I think it's important for us to share information as opposed to misinformation. I have a lot of consultations when people come to me, especially in my community, where they are like, well, this person did this, and this is what they got, and this person's brother, sister, cousin told me this, and so that's what I put on my application. A lot of things that happen are things that we have exposed in our applications that are not right. A lot of things people don't understand that once you, from the time that you file, for most of my clients in Liberia, once you file for that first visa application, whatever you put on there is what you allow the government to see. That's your information. So you cannot, they will all come back and change that information or tell somebody else something else. So I think what is important for us that are here that have access to information, attorneys, and resources is to educate not even the whole world, educate your family members, educate those in your household, educate your friends, your co-workers, because we are all in this community together, and it's very important that we share the right information to avoid pitfalls. I believe in prevention is better than cure. I'd rather avoid that mistake than to go back and try to fix something. So I think it's important for those of us that have access to go ahead and try to break down the fear, and a whole lot that's out there, advise them to seek out someone who has that knowledge and knows exactly what they're doing, so that we prevent our folks from being in situations that may be too late to rectify in the end.
My name is Skeeter Joe. Last name is Francois. This is my beautiful daughter, Lara, and our director, Ron. What I would like to say with respect to the question, especially during this carnival season, for those of you who go to carnival, for those of you who are traveling for Easter, for any one of those situations, or people are just going and taking a trip abroad. I would like to say, especially in this climate, if you're a U.S. citizen, I want you to leave on your U.S. citizen passports, and I want you to come back on your U.S. citizen passport. I believe oftentimes when you're here and you figure, oh, I can have 2 passports. I want to go to my home country, and when I get there, I just want them to say, welcome home. You know, you don't want to say, so how long are you going to be here? What is the address that you're going to be at? This is a problem. It's a problem for a couple of reasons, but most importantly, we don't want them to say when you come back in that you renounce the U.S. citizenship and take away, because they've been taking away passports. And I don't want them to take anyone's passport just because they didn't realize when they went home for carnival to have a good time and they came back that they were going to be in trouble. There is a law that does state you need to use the U.S. passport going and coming. Okay, so you really need to use that passport, you know, so because travel is going to be a big issue. And you're going to see how much travel is going to be a big issue in a little while. It's already started. The other thing is, when you travel within the United States, if you know you're undocumented, I would suggest you not fly or not even take a Greyhound bus. I don't know how you're going to get there, but it's been a problem. People are, you know, there was a Jamaican lady, she was going from Miami to Fort Lauderdale and just got pulled off the bus. Okay? So, you know, you really have to be careful with travel. Whether or not it's travel within this, you know, people are thinking, oh, they're really focusing on Chicago, or they're really focusing on New York, or they're you know, the sanctuary cities and these sorts of things. And that's not the case. They're everywhere. Okay? And that's something people really need to be mindful of. I don't want to say walk with your documents. I know a lot of people don't want to walk with their original documents, which is very understandable. I can't tell you to walk with a copy, but you need to walk with something. Okay? And if you have a case pending, you need to walk with copies of your documents. State that. Because, like I said to some people previously, although just having a case pending is not going to stop anyone from detaining you, if you're undocumented, it will make it easier when we have to get you out. Okay, because at least you would have some documentation. And that information with respect to documentation, I'm sure the moderator is going to ask that question soon, about what documents that you need to have, because everyone needs someone to know where a pile of documents are for in case something happens. You need to have sort of a safe space within your home and have these documents just set aside in case maybe you went to pick the child up from school and they detained you, but no one knows any of your information. Maybe you already have a phone number, maybe you already have things pending, or maybe you don't have anything pending. Okay, or maybe you decided, oh, you don't want to stay here, you want to expedite removal. Well, maybe they know if you have your passport set aside in that safe space with the rest of your documents, you know, that's something that someone else can access relatively easily. You know, because oftentimes people hide so many things and no one's able to find anything. Or maybe you're detained, but maybe you have waivers and things available to you, but you need the documents. It's hard to get any documents if you're detained. So you really need someone that is out there that can advocate on your behalf. Set a family member. Have a family member designated or a good friend designated that, you know, you can get a key and they can go in and say, or call an attorney and say, look, this is the situation. Because oftentimes when you're detained, it's hard for anyone, number one, to even know that you want help. And it's hard for anyone to help you because getting the documents that are oftentimes needed, like your taxes, these other things, that may be needed for advocacy on your behalf is very, very difficult to obtain. All right, so my two things would be to be careful with travel, whether or not it's international or domestic, and make sure you have a safe space where someone knows where your documents are located.
Thank you very much. Like I said, the Avengers. So, there was one mention earlier, you mentioned earlier about what people need to travel with if you're a citizen and if you're undocumented, right? But how do one travel if they're a green card holder?
Is that right? If you're a green card holder? I mean, if you're a green card holder, you're supposed to walk with your green card. That's the rule. A lot of people don't want to walk with their green card. I can't tell you to make a copy of your green card, but you need to walk with something. Okay, now, because you're a green card holder, you know, whether or not you're undocumented or you're a green card holder, your level of protections may be different, okay? So it's often a good idea, if you know you have offenses, to try to remedy it. And when I say remedy, I mean fix, okay? So in other words, maybe you have a case that's not too old, maybe you can get it reopened and the case vacated. Maybe you can, you know, maybe you have a case pending. I tell people all the time, if you know you were arrested, and if it's for something, I say simple, traffic ticket is not simple, but if you were arrested, say for a traffic ticket, or maybe you weren't arrested for a traffic ticket, but you received a traffic ticket, and oftentimes when we go before the judge, they'll say, how do you want to pay? You always want to pay for the entire thing, because if you say you need time to pay for it, that's probation. You don't want probation of any kind. Pay for everything up front. Okay, but if, in fact, you have any other offense that you think is going to be problematic, number one, don't travel. Okay, because even if it's dismissed in this climate, you're going to be taken into secondary inspection. Someone mentioned the fact that they don't want you signing anything, they don't want you abandoning your green card or your naturalization. I'm going to let someone else.
I'd like to just make a comment on the green card issue. We've had several cases where people have get to be like my age and they want to semi-retire, but they haven't gotten their citizenship yet, and they're out of the country for more than 6 months at a time. And they've been given a lot of problems when they try to return. The argument being, well, you're renouncing your green card, giving it up. Be very careful. If you do plan to stay longer, there are some forms you can fill out that will give you up to 2 years to stay. But again, as it's been said many times, get your citizenship, then you never have to worry about that. And if you're not a citizen and you're a green card holder, don't get Social Security if you retire out of the country here. So that's a financial reason to get your citizenship.
I also wanted to add to the point of when you're a lawful permanent resident and you do have a conviction or an arrest, not a conviction, an arrest, and the case was dismissed, make sure you have those dismissal papers, have the certified court documents on you, especially if you're traveling. Because a lot of times when you come in through immigration, you land at Hartsfield, they'll swipe your information, and it'll come up on the computer screen, and you can put it to secondary screening. And that's merely going into another room, and you have to answer questions. If you have the certified court documents with you, it will expedite the process. You present them to the customs and the immigration officer, and they can see that it's nothing. So that's something as well. And I would say travel with those documents in your car, because if you have your green card, you're pulled over, you don't have to present your documents. It's probably best that you do, because I passed out a paperwork stating knowing your rights. When you are approached by ICE, you do have your right to remain silent, even if you're undocumented, if you're documented. Those rights are afforded to everyone within the jurisdiction of the United States. So you do not have to answer questions. Will that make your life difficult in that moment? Perhaps. But you can always assert your right and ask to have an attorney present. Again, if ICE is showing up at your door, if they don't have a warrant, they do not have a right to come into your home. If they do have a warrant, ask them to slide the warrant underneath the door. You examine the warrant, make sure your name is on that warrant, and make sure it's signed by a judge. Otherwise, you can tell them to leave. If they insist on coming into your home and violating your rights, do not resist, allow them into your home, continue to remain silent. If you're allowed, take photographs, get badge numbers, and advocate after the fact. Now, if you are removed from your home and you are detained, there's an ICE locator for your family members, and there is a website. It's an online detainee locator system, and it's locator.ice.gov. And so if you have a family member that doesn't return home, and you know they're undocumented, and you're thinking, I don't know what happened to my family member, they could be at Stewart Detention Center in Montgomery County, Georgia. Go on, within 48 hours, the system is updated, and you go onto that system, you plug in your family member's name, and there you can see if your family member has been detained. And then you move from there. You should have an emergency plan. You should memorize telephone numbers. I know we don't memorize telephone numbers any longer, but your children should know your telephone number. Your school administrators, you give them your telephone number so that your kids can know where you're at. You should also designate someone who would have authorization to make medical and or legal decisions for your children, if you have minor children, if you are detained. So it's a matter of having a plan. Have money for an attorney, so you might want to save some money aside for an attorney. If you're able to present an immigration bond, you want to have money to do that. And I'll conclude, you can never conclude on this subject, but I'll end right now by stating, establish a relationship with an immigration attorney now. That is probably the most proactive thing that you can do. Establish a relationship so that you have a phone number, the attorney can go into action for you.
Just a follow-up to the statements of both councils is a lot of permanent residents believe that if I'm a permanent resident and I'm traveling outside of the United States, I'm a permanent resident. Well, the law says every time you are coming back, you are asking the government for permission to allow you back into the country. That's why it's so critical that no matter how old your arrest was, whether you were a juvenile or it was 1970 or 1980, a lot of individuals say, oh, that was so long ago, I can't even remember. Well, you don't have to worry, they're going to fingerprint you, and they're going to remember. And they're going to use it to say that you're an arriving alien, and that they're not granting you admission as a permanent resident, and that you're going to have to go in removal proceedings. It's going to be more expensive to deal with it. So it's less expensive to sit down with an immigration attorney first, talk about your criminal history, make sure that there's nothing in your criminal history that would bar you from being admitted when you're asking for permission to come back. One of the other ultimate benefits that most permanent residents miss is when you become a citizen of the United States, if your minor child is also a permanent resident and they're under the age of 18, they will automatically derive the U.S. citizenship from your naturalization. So I have been pushing everyone who is eligible that doesn't have a criminal history, that the mindset of, well, I didn't want to lose ties to my country, I feel like I was betraying my country if I don't become, if I don't remain a citizen of that country. That is a myth. You need to become a citizen so that your minor children who have friends that were brought here from such a young age that they don't realize you're not an American yet, don't get into trouble by being racially profiled by law enforcement. They're in the car with a friend, the car gets pulled over, the kid gets arrested, the kid is a permanent resident. He doesn't realize not only is he going to be arrested for criminal charges, but his immigrant status is now up for grabs. You as a parent, by just naturalizing, can save your child years later. I've had a case in my firm. The gentleman was 32 years old. His parents naturalized before his 18th birthday. He was clueless that he was a derivative citizen. He He got placed in deportation proceedings, and the first thing we did was file appropriate documents with the court saying, you're unlawfully holding a U.S. citizen. And what happened is, they were released immediately, because the federal immigration judge cannot detain a U.S. citizen. So become a citizen so you can save your kids from foolish decisions that they will be making as children, so that when they become an adult, you can save them.
Patrice, did you want to say something?
Yes,
20 seconds. Patience and Skeeter. Okay, go ahead.
I also want to, it actually goes to what you were talking about with respect to the visas. Oftentimes, when you fill out these applications abroad to come into the United States, sometimes you go to the embassy 2 or 3 times. Most of the time, you think, they didn't do anything to just shut the window in my face. You know, after you stood in line for, since 2 o'clock in the morning, and they just shut the window in your face. But everything that you put on that application, that's one of the questions that they ask you now. Have you ever been denied a visa, or have you ever been denied entry into the United States? And many people don't remember. Some people, they go a few times, some people go once. Some people didn't even realize their parent applied on their behalf of their own. So, you have to be really, really careful, because oftentimes that's how they get you to the false statements. So you want to really make sure that you know of every single time, or you can remember every single time. And the new thing they have on these applications now, which I think is really unfair, is, well, I should say they had it previously, which is, have you ever received public benefits? Okay? I had a client recently that didn't know she signed something for public benefits. It was back in the 80s. She was at the hospital in New York, and they said, if you sign this, we can admit you to the hospital. But she thought she was signing hospital records, not realizing she was signing Medicaid. And now, that's one of the things they ask you. They never asked it, for years, even if they asked it, it wasn't a big deal. But now, that's very, very important. If you've ever received public benefits. And that goes for SNAP, or retirement, or anything. Okay, it doesn't make a difference what it is. You really need to be careful of everything you try to remember as much as you can for anything you previously filed. Now, you can do a FOIA for your file, and sometimes that's not a bad idea. However, it does take quite a long time to come through. But you absolutely want to know what you previously put on any documentation. Of course, you never want, I tell my clients there's 3 or 4 things you never want to do. You never want to call yourself a U.S. citizen. You never want to vote. And you never want to be arrested. Now, if you got arrested, there's, you could probably fix it depending, okay? Of course, if you owe child support, that's remediable. You just have to say that you're on a payment schedule. If you owe taxes, that's remediable. But the issue with voting, the issue with calling yourself a United States citizen, especially the citizenship part, that's usually a permanent bar to the United States. And the way it's stated is in writing or any other way. So say, for instance, you wanted to work under the table, but then you're like, you know what, I could use my cousin's Social Security because they don't work anyway, but your cousin's a U.S. citizen. Well, a claim can be made that you claim to be a United States citizen by using someone else's Social Security number who is a U.S. citizen. So you have to really be careful. People used to do this back in the 80s, back in the 70s. But now everything with, the computers and all these different things, everything is catching up. And some people think that things they did years ago, and sometimes it doesn't matter depending on when an NTA was served or what happened with respect to an offense. But, everything is now coming back. And every little thing that didn't matter, like traveling outside on the Jamaican passport because you want to stay for longer than 2 weeks and then coming back on a U.S. citizen passport, That never used to be a problem, but it's a problem now. So it's a lot of little things that was never a problem, but they're a problem now, and that's what you need to be mindful of.
Real conversations.
And I just wanted to add, you never want to misrepresent ID line. You never want to lie on an application, you're a green card holder and you're looking to naturalize, so you're filling out your I-400. Never lie. If you've been out of the country X amount of days, they know that. I mean, it's in the system. If you misrepresent, willfully misrepresent, now you can forget, you know, we get older, we forget. But if it can be proven that you willfully misrepresented in an effort to gain an immigration benefit, you're done. And so that's something else you never want to do. You never want to misrepresent on an application. Verbally, that's what.
We're hearing real conversations. Now, I do have a question. Earlier you mentioned that make sure you don't have any strikes against you in the law. What if you do have strikes? Will it be from misdemeanor through the various things that you could have been arrested for, whether it be from traffic to theft to assault, whatever. How does that impact you, say, if you're in one of the non-citizen documented roles?
Okay, so if you're a permanent resident and you've been arrested for a criminal offense, there are certain criminal offenses that are deportable. That includes misdemeanors. A lot of individuals think, I just got a misdemeanor, how could it be an aggravated felony? Well, the difference between state law and federal immigration law is what determines whether a misdemeanor is actually an aggravated felony. So be careful with going into criminal court without consulting with an immigration attorney or having a criminal defense attorney who actually practices immigration law handling your criminal case. Because what's going to happen is what's a sweet deal for a U.S. citizen is not a sweet deal for a permanent resident. And all you're doing is trading one problem for another. You're trading your state arrest case for a federal immigration case. So if you walk in, the judges are now aware, and they will read the plea colloquy to you that says, if you are a permanent resident, they used to say, when I was in court, it may affect your immigrant status. They've changed that now. They're saying it's going to cause you deportation. So the judges are aware, and they were getting these convictions overturned based on the Supreme Court ruling in a case called Padilla. Because in Padilla, the criminal defendant in that case was not advised that he would be facing deportation proceedings had he taken the plea. He took the plea, and then the plea caused him to be placed in deportation proceedings. The Supreme Court of the United States came back and said, wait, being separated from one's family for the rest of their natural-born life, that's a serious enough issue and consequence that we think either the criminal defense attorney, the judge, or an immigration attorney should have advised the person of that issue or that potential consequence. So do not assume that because you have a misdemeanor charge, that will not become a deportable offense under federal immigration law, because federal immigration law has a list of offenses that are aggravated felonies or they're crimes involving moral turpitude. So be very, very careful. My suggestion is if you get arrested, you have an open criminal case, consult with an immigration attorney. If your criminal defense attorney said, I'm clueless, I don't know what's going on in that arena, here's the offer from the state, you're either going to take this offer or you can go consult with an immigration attorney as to whether or not this is a decent enough offer for you as a permanent resident to take. Once you clear that with your immigration attorney, then you can go back and handle this with a criminal case. But other than that, you're going to be in serious consequences. One more thing I have to say about crimes. A lot of individuals think probation is not a conviction. Probation is jail time served outside of jail.
Repeat that, please, and clarify.
Probation, for the people in the back, is jail time served outside of jail. You are convicted if you are on probation. What the law is saying is, although we're convicting you and we're sentencing you to this time, whether 12 months or 2 years or 5 years, we're going to allow you to serve it on probation. You don't know how many times I've gotten a phone call where I say to the person, have you been convicted? They say, no, I just got probation. They're like, okay, probation is jail time outside of jail, you are convicted. So don't assume that because you're getting a probated sentence in your criminal proceedings, that's not a sentence. That's a sentence, it's a conviction, and the federal immigration rules are going to apply, and you could be facing a deportation proceeding. These crimes can be fixed, as stated by counsel on my right. There's something we do at our firm called post-conviction relief. That means you'll come in and you'll say, hey, I got this conviction in Maryland, and I was the passenger in a car. The car was pulled over by law enforcement, and there were drugs found in the trunk. I got scared. I had a crappy defense counsel. They took me in and they pled me, and I just took the plea because I did not want to go to jail. That's something that our office has been able to go back and do what's called post-conviction relief. We file either what's called habeas corpus. We file a motion to set aside the plea if it's early enough. We've done a lot of things, and sometimes those jurisdictions are very helpful in trying to get the conviction overturned. Some of the things that we're able to do is modify the sentence by having a conversation with the district attorney or the solicitor general for that jurisdiction, and we get a deal put together, and we draft a consent modification order, we send it to the judge signs it, and now we fix the underlying deportable offense, making it no longer deportable, and then the person can now proceed with the immigration portion. So careful, misdemeanors can be aggravated felonies. Careful, probation is a sentence and it is conditional.
With respect, I had a law professor, I'm team 23 years old, so on. But I had a law professor that always used to say there's an exception to everything. And that's how I always go about everything. I always believe there's an exception. There are a lot of waivers that you can receive. Now, of course, for most aggravated felonies, you cannot receive a waiver, but there are some circumstances that it's sort of tricky. But people have to be mindful whether or not it's an aggravated felony doesn't matter depending on the offense if it happened within 5 years of you arriving in the United States. So if it's a CIMT, crime involving moral turpitude, which is usually an offense that happens within the first 5 years. So sometimes it may not necessarily be a deportable offense or an inadmissible offense or something to that effect if you were here longer than 5 years. So with respect to offenses, you need to look at how long you've been here, how long ago it was, what's your status at the time, are you related to him? So there's a lot of different things that you really need to look at with respect to an offense. But I truly believe that if you get arrested, other than your defense attorney, you need to call an immigration attorney because defense attorneys get you in trouble. You know, because they're doing things that are quick and they figure, oh, it doesn't matter. And, you know, there was a time when they never told you that probation is jail time to be served outside. They do tell you that now, but there was a time that they did not tell you that. Now, not all, some probation is straight probation, you know, but it just depends on how it's written. So I've had defense lawyers call me and say, how do you want the disposition written? How do you want the offense written? Because you want it to definitely be written a certain way so it doesn't have any immigration consequences. But oftentimes, defense lawyers, unless they do, you know, immigration and criminal defense work, right. So unless they do both, it's very rare that they actually know, you know, how things should be written. So it's really important if you have that status to be very careful when you plead. Okay?
I would like to add that as a rule of thumb, when I have a client come in, automatically I ask them, have you been arrested? Have you been in jail? Have you been before a judge? Anything that can trigger for them to let me know, yes, there is a problem. And if I get that sense, I automatically tell them, we need to pull your criminal background. Because a lot of them don't even know what's in your criminal background. And I go a step further and say, you know what, we need to get an FBI check for every single state that you lived in, resided in, got pulled over, whatever it is, because I don't want any surprises when we send these documents and then we get something back from immigration and then we all start freaking out. So my rule of thumb is if you don't know what's on your history and you know you've been arrested, cited, served time, probation, go then before you even go to the attorney, get that information for them, take it to the attorney, go to the courthouse, get your case disposition, get your case file, give it to the attorney. I mean, I like full disclosure of everything, because a lot of clients will hide things, and they think it's beneficial for them, but at the end, it very much makes everything work. So full disclosure, tell your attorney everything, you know what's on your own record, and then we can help you much better once we know what's out there.
Go ahead, sorry.
I just want to make a point about the disclosure as well. And together, FBI fingerprints, well, it's only $1,500. It's well worth the investment because you don't want anything $50 or $100 in some locations.
But we're talking about, if you have been arrested, if you've been arrested, what can happen? I don't know if anyone's aware of the Layne Act. This is going to become moot. Because under the Layne Act, you can be accused of a crime. You don't have to actually have been convicted. You don't even have to have been arrested. You can be accused of a crime. I guess you would be arrested if you're being detained and being questioned. But these matters, this is what mass deportation is looking like. It's not rounding up people in mass, putting them on airplanes. It's measures like Layne. If you are an undocumented immigrant and you have been accused of burglary, shoplifting, assaulting a law enforcement officer, causing grave bodily injuries, and or death, within 48 hours, you will be back in your home country. So it's not even a matter of if you had an arrest, where are the documents, you need an immigration attorney. This is what's happening, and there's one case, I think about 3 or 4 days ago, so Layne has been put to the test. An Indiana man, undocumented, caused a fatal car accident, and he's back home in Guatemala. So when we're talking about arrests and things of this nature, keep Layne Riley, she's a young woman, I think it was just an anniversary of her murder a couple of days ago here in Georgia, so there's a real nexus, and even Democrats within the House agreed with the Republicans in terms of passing an act that's promptly signed by Trump. It is law. It is something that is new. I think it was signed on January 29th. It is very new. And the only caveat that I would say where again, it's fear-mongering, don't get too alarmed. It would cost about $29 billion to implement the Layne Act. What do I mean by that? You need extra law enforcement officers. You need transportation. If you are deporting people, someone has to pay to fly people back home. You need places to detain individuals who you are arresting. So we're going to see how the Layne Act is going to play out, but that is something that is being used, I'm sure, in states like Georgia. I don't have to go into color, red states, blue states. You're definitely going to see people being deported by using the Layne Act. So this is mass deportation by another.
And by the way, that act came out of an action that occurred in this state, right in Georgia. So we're now affecting the entire country, all immigrants, off of something that occurred here. Did anybody else say anything, want to say anything on that?
The Layne Act is what frustrates me about that act is that at the time of the unfortunate demise of this young lady, she was not even a UGA student. And that frustrated me because we're using UGA and her passing to do something that probably we wanted to do in the first place, which is target immigrants. I am hopeful that attorneys such as ourselves and others throughout the state will not be afraid to challenge those laws. And the issue we have is that when a law is put in place, unless challenged to the point where it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, it sits on the books and it gets sometimes disparately enforced. If you're European, probably they won't go forward on you because they'll choose selectively not to pursue your deportation. Or if you're a white South African, which is one of the groups that President Trump has offered asylum to, not realizing that they own 80% of the wealth, so they rejected his offer as most people would if they had money. But the Labor Money Act, I want us to not be afraid to push that envelope, to take it to the Court of Appeals, to take it to the Supreme Court, to petition writs to the Supreme Court of the United States to say, this is not right, and we've got to stop, and we've got to fix it. I want some of the naturalized citizens also, there's this myth out there that your U.S. citizenship can just be snatched up in a follow-up to the fear-mongering that's going on. And there's something under the law that still exists, which is due process of law. And in order for you to lose your United States naturalized citizenship, you must first go before a federal judge who is going to go through the process to determine, did you obtain your citizenship fraudulently? If you fraudulently got your citizenship, then yes, your naturalizations can be revoked. But that's with anything. If you fraudulently got your driver's license, I can revoke it. If you fraudulently got a birth certificate, I can revoke it. So the focus is not whether or not it can be revoked, but under what legal grounds. There's no legal grounds to just pick up a bunch of naturalization applications at USCIS and say, we're taking back, this group we're taking back. But they can if they have the manpower, and I don't believe they do, because there's a difference between a possibility of something and the probability of something. It is possible, because there's a lot of things that Donald Trump is doing we thought were not possible. But Congress is asleep behind the wheel, I guess. And the probability is what we're hoping that prevents some of these catastrophic moves that are taking place. But my focus is naturalize anyway, because that's how we fix this nightmare that we're gonna be facing for the next 4 years, is we need to bombard USCIS with naturalization applications, because it's one of the only applications that they have a time restraint on and must process within a certain period of time. So if we as immigration attorneys, and let me tell you something, if you look me up, you know I'm not afraid of anyone. I will file a lawsuit on behalf of a permanent resident and go to federal court and say, rule on it. They don't have to grant the citizenship, but they have to rule on it. And a lot of times when you get to that courthouse steps and the assistant U.S. attorney realizes, oh my God, I'm not gonna win this case, they back down. And they'll say, okay, we're not gonna do that, Judge. We're gonna send something on. And they'll move that application that has been sitting there for the 8 years, 9 years that your client's been waiting with a pending N-400. So don't be afraid. Sit down with the immigration lawyer. Vet the criminal history. It is what it is. It's happened already. It doesn't make any sense for you to sit at home cringing, hoping that what's out there that could have been fixed, that we could have used the time as attorneys to try to fix and to file this stuff and to go to DC or to go to Maryland or call South Carolina or call North Carolina to fix whatever is in your criminal history so that we can get past and we can naturalize you, and then we can save all your little babies that are under the age of 18 by naturalizing you. So hopefully, the message that you'll get, if of nothing else here today, is file your naturalization applications, consult an immigration attorney to make sure you're safe, and if they won't rule on that naturalization application, sue. 120 days.
You have 120 days from the date of your interview. If a decision is not made, you can actually sue the government and force them to make a decision. Like my colleague said, that doesn't mean it's going to be granted, but they have to make a decision.
We're finding that we're getting interviews within 4 to 6 months after we file, and people can come in the same day that they have their interview. It's really fast. It's expensive, as Jason referred, but there are ways around that, as he said. I'd just like to hopefully not step on the toes of our elected officials here and put my political hat on again. But, you know, to make references to 4 years and why is he doing this so fast? There are elections in 2 years. The majority in the House is razor thin, and he knows if he doesn't push it, there's a chance that he won't have total control of the House and Senate. So, vote.
We'll look at the bill number first, because if we come to the House, the Layne Riley, so we're looking up to see where the status of that is.
Oh, he signed it?
It's law, it's law. I understand what we filed on it.
Oh, you signed it? Oh, okay.
I wanted to let people know what the Layne Riley law is, which is basically fast tracking deportations for individuals with felony convictions. And under this law, individuals who are found to have committed crimes in the United States, including felonies, can be expedited for removal from the United States without usual lengthy appeals process. So the criminal convictions as deportation triggers, because that's what they're using. So for those individuals who were previously granted asylum or seeking asylum, a felony conviction could trigger immediate deportation, bypassing certain protections that might have been available to them in the past. And then you have detention during the asylum process, which are individuals with felony convictions may be held in detention during their asylum proceedings, making it harder for them to stay in the United States, even if they have a legitimate fear of returning to their home country. So I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. Does anyone have questions?
Well, you're preempted. First of all, can we give a round of applause to the all-woman Avengers? Now, I'm glad you guys said this because I'm going to ask you about what we do to fight back. And for those who don't know, there is in the courts now a lawsuit against the Birthright Citizenship Executive Order. There is currently this week a lawsuit filed against the revocation of the Venezuelans extended TPS, and there are conversations about a lawsuit against the revocation of Haitian extension TPS. So there are ways to fight back as been described here. Now we're going to take questions from the audience and also take questions from online. If people watching on Jaywalk of us, put your question in the comments and we will see on. Please carry the microphone to a question.
So I've been following the Layne Riley case and the act. And so is it true that if you're solely arrested, you can be deported, or does it have to trigger the conviction? And then the second part of my question would be, for those that are convicted of serious crimes, are they going to be deported, or do they have to serve their sentence here and then be deported?
The answer to that, as a lawyer, it depends. And the reason I say that is because it's a case-by-case situation. I've seen cases where they've required the person to finish the sentence before they're actually deported. And that mindset came around a few years, I would say maybe about 10, 15 years ago, when a lot of individuals who were getting deported were just coming right back. So in order to stop that constant reentry after deportation without permission or authorization, a lot of jurisdictions were saying, you know what, you're just gonna do this time. There are certain circumstances though where jurisdictions will say, that's expensive. He's got bigger fish to fry, let him go to the feds. I don't want him in my state custody. Go, bye-bye, save my taxpayers some money. Those jurisdictions you're gonna find will say, hey, guess what? ICE came and picked you up because they called ICE and said, could you come get him please? He's expensive to feed and he's sick. So that's why it depends, because a jurisdiction that says I can save all the money in the world for my constituents, if I send him home, feds will come get him, he's gone. Some jurisdictions say, we have the money, we don't care. We're gonna waste taxpayers' money, we're gonna have them served because we're concerned they're gonna come right back. Those jurisdictions are gonna have them served. I'll let council talk about the Layne Riley regarding arrest.
So your question was, does it only pertain to asylum? Was that your question?
My question was, is it going to account just for the arrest? So if they're arrested for a serious felony, meaning they're only accused of it, will they be deported at that point? Or, as in the Layne Riley case, he was convicted and sentenced to life, but now we're going to deport him? It seems contradictory what they're trying to do.
Because this is legal. Okay, so it really does depend. The way I understand the law to work is if you have had a conviction, and say for instance, something else transpired, because you have to be on their radar, they have to be able to pick you up. So it's not, because if you haven't been adjudicated guilty, they can't send you anywhere. So, I mean, they can, but, you know, you have to be adjudicated guilty first, and then, under that act, that can happen. That's why, when I spoke about it, I only spoke about it with respect to asylum, because it really hasn't been put into play yet. You know, but it has been with respect to asylum.
So the intent too is to not grant you any bond. It's my understanding that the Layne model is to keep you from, it's a mandatory detention. So even though you're not convicted, you're not getting bond, you're gonna sit in that county lockup until you have been tried and convicted and then deported. That's the big problem that everybody has, because you are gonna be treated as if you're guilty as accused, not after you're proven beyond a reasonable doubt guilty. So issues that need to be raised is if you have a client that the court's saying based on Layne Riley, I'm not gonna grant a bond, you need to now challenge that. And one of the creative ways that I'm gonna challenge that is file a habeas corpus, that the person is unconstitutionally being held, because the case of Viola states that as long as I meet the Viola factors, I'm not a threat to the community, I'm not a flight risk, all those things, that I should be granted a bond. So now you're gonna have state law and federal law conflicting, which is gonna give us as attorneys an opportunity to make some waves and change some laws.
But they already have a mandatory detention law, which is so strange, because to me, this doesn't really matter, because they already have mandatory detention law for immigration. I'm like, why are they doing this if there was already one on the books? It's a double law, it's the same law that we have.
It is going to be challenging, it'll probably go away, hopefully. But as my colleagues have stated, it's new. It is so new. It's not tried and tested. One case, he was probably not represented by counsel. He was deported under Layne Riley for causing a fatality in a car accident. In terms of who Layne, the people who should be, the immigrants who should be afraid of Layne Riley, according to my research, it is not going to affect LPRs. So if you're a lawful permanent resident and Layne Riley cannot be used against you. If you entered on a visa and overstayed, Layne Riley will not affect you as well. If you were granted refugee status outside the United States, it's not going to affect you if you enter the United States. So if you're filing for asylum within the United States, you're going to have a problem. So if you get to the border and you make your claim, then you should be okay. Again, this is cursory research. It is so new. It was passed on January 29th. It's not even a month old. So we're giving you the best answers that we can give you based on our body of knowledge as lawyers and as immigration attorneys, but this is so new. But it's something to be concerned about, obviously. And in terms of if you're arrested and being deported, generally speaking, if you're arrested for a crime, you will serve your time here in the United States, and as soon as the next plane's smoking, they will send you back home. But normally speaking, you will indeed spend your time here and then go back home.
Yes, I heard a lot of mention about permanent residents and TPS and naturalized citizens. And I know what it means to document. But for the life of me, I cannot understand what group of people fall under the umbrella of undocumented. Because I'm heard the mention of DACA and people like those. So what group of people fall under the category of undocumented?
Undocumented is just undocumented is you're here in the United States after either coming in without documents, or you're here in the United States after using a visa to enter the United States, but you never established permanent residency at all. That's an undocumented person. So all those people you see at the border trying to come in, technically they're undocumented. And, you know, you gotta be really, really careful with a lot of guys. It just depends on where you fall. Because you could fall so many different places, you know? And I can't even say enter, because enter is a legal term. I don't know if you were admitted or not, because even now, they're letting you in the United States, but they're not admitting you to the United States. So you can't even file, say you get married to a US citizen, it's not like you can file a green card because they're stamping it as if you're still outside, even though you're physically here. So it just depends on what category you fall in. You understand? Or not?
All right, we have time for one more question here, and then one more question online, and we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, I have two simple questions. Can you remove from the system for a traffic violation, or can you remove from that violation?
Is your question, can you be deported for not filing your taxes?
Yes, I'm removed for a traffic violation.
And can you be deported for a traffic violation?
Yes.
Deportation and removal, I'm using it interchangeably.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Okay, so if the traffic violation, is just a regular speeding ticket.
Under $500.
Under $500, that would be a no.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a vehicle or homicide, a DUI, those are things that you're getting into the serious category, although it involves an automobile and it's considered a traffic violation under state statute, you're now getting into deep waters as it pertains to your immigrant status. So be careful with DUIs, drink all you want, get somebody else to drive you. And be careful with the issue of crimes of violence that, in a car with my girlfriend, I'm just driving, and the officer charging me with speeding, but I'm beating her up, so I pick up a domestic violence while I pick up speeding. You might say, well, it's a traffic violation, but they're gonna look at the DZ charge that you picked up in the totality of the circumstances. So hopefully that answers your question. It's a yes and a no, and it would be a depends again. And that's why you always have to say, let me go sit down with somebody and take in this case and say, hey, I just got arrested last week. The quicker you get to an attorney, the better, whether you can afford one or not, because a lot of attorneys are doing free consultations. That's why it's mind-boggling to a bunch of attorneys that would say, why would you not come sit down for free? If you can get your question answered for free, which can save you, a lifetime of jail, why would you not do that?
It was two questions.
The tax.
Oh, the taxes, all right.
Filing taxes.
So I've never seen in 23 years anybody reported for not paying their taxes.
Now,
What are you trying to understand there? Somebody had to bring that was reminded that he's missing taxes by ICE when he was coming through.
Okay, so you have a friend that already
Somebody
had
had a
a
relative that was entering, going and coming, and they remind him that they haven't seen 3 years taxes filed. So, know that.
No, they can't do that. That's very
That's over there.
I disbelieve them.
Yeah, no, they're not telling the truth. They're making up stories. The federal government is good, but they're not that good. And to be honest with you, they're not as smart as people think they are. So, the federal tax, Elon Musk got more tax information for you right now than the Customs Border Patrol immigration officer would have if you were coming in on a flight from any country.
If someone was removed from the United States, it has to fall under a law that they violated. So it usually has to be a pretty serious offense. So if someone was removed, it wasn't because of taxes. Failure to pay taxes if you're filing for your naturalization of course you can backfire, but failure to pay the taxes, all they're going to do is just deny the naturalization and tell you to file. You understand? But failure to file taxes does not, unless he was committing like mass fraud and doing doing all kind of tax fraud, but nothing serious, like he was using 3 social security numbers or something. But then he would have had to have been charged. You understand? And so if it's for taxes, it would be something he had to have gotten charged for. Now I also need to say this is for informational purposes only, because all of this is in a vacuum. Okay, this is for informational purposes only, because all of this is in a vacuum, because we don't know all of the facts for everything that you're asking. Okay, so that's something that you should be mindful of.
All right, I want to twisted. Two more questions, and then I'm done. Sorry.
I have two questions. So,
No, one.
well, I can make it one. So, my mom has two passports, Trinidad and Tobago passport, American passport. Usually she uses the Trinidad and Tobago passport to enter into Trinidad. The passport is not stamped, so she's coming back to the US with her American passport for entrance in. So she's worried about that and what she should be doing coming in.
Let's hope. She should do it. But let's hope she has a really nice person that when she's coming in through TSA and tell her to smile. Because they can revoke the passport.
So you say they could revoke the passport, but then you say to revoke your citizenship, you have to appear in front of a judge, right?
Right.
So what's the balance?
Right now, I know they've been putting people in secondary inspection, and they're putting like a stamp in it or something to that effect. You know, so if you try to get another passport, it becomes a problem.
And you guys also said it takes 120 days to file a naturalization paper. It should I could be, so correct me if I'm wrong. It's like somebody who's filing for citizenship, the citizenship papers. It takes 120 days, and that's.
I think you're mixing up the two things. Citizenship and naturalization are two different things.
Oh, so I'm asking about a citizen. Somebody who's holding a green card, someone holding a green card and filing for this citizenship.
Naturalization.
Right. So how long does that paperwork take? Is it 120 days, someone said?
If I'm understanding your question, that's my caveat. From the day you have your naturalization interview, we're sitting at USCIS here in North Lake, Atlanta. You sat there, you presented your paperwork, and the immigration officer saying, well, I can't make a decision yet. We have to do some more background check based on something that you actually said at the interview. They have from the moment of the ending of that interview, 120 days to make a decision on your application. If they do not make a decision on your application, you can go forward and file a mandamus. What you're basically saying is, do your job.
Okay, so yes, so I guess.
Not from the date you mailed the application.
Not from the date you mailed the application. From that day
But I did say that in my experience recently, the time from mailing application to your interview is running 4 to 6 months.
Become a citizen, naturalize, and then all of this can go away.
So the theme is become a citizen. Marsha.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for the great info. So my question is, outside of the recommendation for as much of us to naturalize as possible, what are other specific actions that the Caribbean community can take to arm ourselves against what's happening?
So there are a lot of people who are eligible to get their green cards that don't file. So I would say if you're in that position again, talk to the attorney. But if you or your spouse, your parents, your kids are in that position to at least get your green card, then go ahead and do some steps. Again, it goes back to the fear. A lot of people don't think they can file at this point, or they may not be eligible, but you don't know unless you talk to someone who can really sit down with you, go through your story, your facts, and determine if you are at least take that step and get your green card, and then you can get your citizenship.
All right, next question.
Yeah, I just have a simple question. This is in relation to ICE coming or an officer stopping you. Now, if you're a citizen and you have your passport with you, do you have to also have your citizenship certificate? Okay. Can you put those information, can you put your passport information on your phone? Or your green card? Is it acceptable, or I notice people use IDs.
and you don't walk in the ID, can use, and you have it on your phone, can you show those things? I just want to get those information.
You could. However, you want to be careful with electronics, because if you lose that electronic, or somebody else can access that electronic, then your identity could be up for grabs. I've had a case in the past where my client went in for naturalization through previous counsel, not me. And during the interview, he was advised that he was already deported. Well, what happened is he allowed his identification to be compromised through prior relationships, and someone got deported in his name. And what we had to do is we had to come in and fight to show, based on fingerprints, because no one was paying attention to the fingerprints, that it was not him. So the only thing I'm concerned about by electronically walking around with a copy of my naturalization certificate on my phone is, one, interactions with law enforcement. Sometimes police officers will just say, give me your phone. You know what I'm saying? People don't know they have a right to say, no, I'm not gonna open my phone. Because it's so traumatic, you're so fearful, you're like, okay, let me show him, maybe this is gonna keep me from going to jail. It's not. If he has an intent, he's taking you into custody, you are going into custody. So it's better for you to preserve your rights, remain calm, not have it electronically, because as a U.S. citizen, you don't have to have your proof of citizenship in your phone or anywhere on you. In fact, you don't have to have your U.S. passport. One of the most amazing things, I was driving to Arizona for an immigration case, and I was ignorant. I'm an immigrant. I was not born in this country. I was born in Jamaica. My parents came here in the 70s. I'm aging myself because I look 21. I'm just kidding. But I was traveling by vehicle to Arizona, and when we were going to Arizona for court, I noticed that when we got to certain states, you have to pull off the road, and you have to go through these checkpoints, which I was oblivious to. Don't ask me why. It made sense when I was going through them, but I was just shocked. There are heat cameras, there's heat sensitive things to determine how many bodies are in the car, because you're so close to the Mexican border that they're trying to make sure you haven't just buried 6 people and now you're trying to bring them in. And when I pulled into it looks like a truck bay, like where you would pull into a truck bay, and the officer comes up to the window, and I roll the window down, and he says, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" And I was kind of startled, because I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, okay, all right. Anybody else in the car with you?" And I'm like, "Casper the Friendly Ghost? Like, who else did you see?" You know what I mean? I was being kind of smart ass, but then I realized he was like, "Okay, you're free to go." I was like, I didn't have my passport. I've never driven to Florida with my passport with me. So I was driving to Arizona, not realizing I was going to have this checkpoint that I had to go through. So I never brought my passport. So I kind of said, "So what would you do if I said I was not a citizen?" Then the inquiry goes further. So the caveat is, claim the citizenship because they never verified, but if you falsely claim to be a citizen, then you're deportable from the United States. My experience was uncommon, but I didn't have to have my passport. I didn't have to take out my phone to show that I naturalized. I didn't have to take out any identification. I gave my driver's license and I said, "I'm a U.S. citizen," and we were off. It didn't take more than a few minutes. But I would caution you to have in your electronic device such a critical piece of information. It would be better for you to travel with your green card. In fact, the law requires you as a permanent resident to travel with your permanent resident card, just like how you are required to have your driver's license on you. A lot of permanent residents don't know that. They take it, they throw it in the drawer, and they're like, "I don't want to lose it," but they don't realize you're violating federal law by sticking it in the United States and getting a card and driving out. But don't, that's just my personal take. It's not to put it electronically.
Required by law that green card holders must travel with their green card wherever they go. All right, last question, Avengers. During Trump's last administration, someone gave me a pocket size, this is from a teacher. During Trump's last administration, someone gave me a pocket-sized card with information and a script with the proper legal words for someone to say if they were ever detained or questioned by immigration. At the time, I copied it and laminated these cards for my international students to carry with them at all times. I lost the document during the bad years. Is there anyone on the panel who can tell me where I can find this information, these cards for my current students? They are afraid, their families are afraid, and many are staying out of school because of this fear. I would like to offer some kind of leverage to at least give them some sort of comfort as they venture out.
I think what they're talking about is this red card. And it's a red card, and it's similar to the Know Your Rights things that people are pushing out.
Somebody's holding it up in the audience.
There she is, she's got it. See that red card? That's the card that they're talking about. And I think it's the American Civil Liberties Union, which you can go to their website. And the ACLU has these red cards that you can travel around with. And it has the information. Yeah, I do too, but the red cards are coming back now with Donald Trump, so what she's talking about is that red card.
I just want to get back to the.
Well, before you go there, where can she get more of these cards for students?
ACLU.
The ACLU.
I want to get back to having your documents on your devices. Many times when people are coming here, of course, a lot of times they come to work or what have you, and if you allow ICE to go through your phone, they see all your messages as well. So it's not as though when you give them the phone, they're only authorized to look at the one screen or one picture that you want. So oftentimes what happens, and that's how a lot of people get removed from the United States. ICE ends up looking through your phone, and what ends up happening is they see, oh, I see you have an appointment to meet for a job, or I see you were texting someone about, even if it's just, I don't know, babysitting or what have you, but if you're texting someone about, doing living or any sort of work, and they see that, they can remove you. Because remember, when you enter the United States for pleasure, because you're visiting, right? So you're a visitor for pleasure, you're not allowed to do anything other than what your visa says. So anything else is a violation of the visa. So and that's why they often ask, have you ever worked without valid documentation? Because that would be a violation of the original visa. So that means you lied and committed fraud on the way in. That's why they get you on these different aspects. So now they can say, oh, you lied on the visa application, and then when you enter, you lied again because you spoke to the immigration officer, and then you lied because you were misleading and committed fraud. So, so now it can sort of build. So, and that's all from giving them the phone. So that's not a good idea.
But everything she just said is absolutely true. But here's the rub. When you enter the United States on a visitor's visa, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you basically have no fundamental rights at all. So when you come in through Hartsfield Jackson, they ask you to see your phone, your iPad, your watch. You have to turn it over.
But don't.
But here's the thing. We can't, as attorneys, we can't tell you. Oh, yeah. I never told my clients, like if the social media is a thing as well, someone will apply for a fiance visa, a marriage visa, and then on social media, they're posing with someone who's not their fiance, or their wife, or their husband. DHS, they look through your social media accounts. They do. So I can't tell my client to delete their postings, because then I'm telling them to destroy evidence. But I can tell them to make their accounts private, right? And so that's something you want to do. So, but when you're at the border and you are standing on that line and they say, may I look at your phone? You more or less have to turn your phone over, because then they can deny you entry. So you have a choice. You can be denied entry, or you hand over your phone. As an attorney, I'm telling you, make sure that what you have on your phone is not anti-American, not debt to America. You don't want to have anything like that on your phone. The postings that you are liking on Instagram, you want to be careful about that. So, I mean, this is mass deportation. Again, it's not rounding everyone up when you come out of your place of work. They are using every means possible to deport people. Things that we never paid attention to in the past. Things that I would never have to tell a client in the past. I even tell my clients, when you have a pending VAWA application, and that's Violence Against Women's Act, you can self-petition on your own if you're in a domestic violence married with an LPR citizen, LPR or US citizen, you might want to have your pending, that they have your receipt notice in your car with you. It might not stop you from being detained, but if it slows down, if you have a reasonable ICE officer, they will look at it and see that it's an actual document and say, okay, move on to the next person. This is a waste of time, there's some resources, we're not going to detain them. So I tell my clients, laminate it. Put those pending receipt notices in your car. So if you ever stop and if you want to cooperate, this will slow it down. It will slow it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, this panel has been mainly we've gone over time, but I want you to thank Attorney Bernadine, Layne, Attorney Marsha, Mignott, Attorney Kaysee-Saydee, and Attorney Skeeter, Francois. Give them a round of applause. Now, get the cards, pass them around here. Let's make sure the church has a relationship with them, because I know you have immigrants in your congregation. And like I said, have a relationship with them. There is a fight going on, there's lawsuits going on. We're going to get ready for the next panel, which is the open angles. Thank you again. And all on the team, the Avengers.
I just want to say I want to thank the Caribbean Georgia folks for having me. And I also want to say that I'm also here as a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Georgia.
We're going to have Representative Scholfield, Representative Scott, we're going to have Giovanni and Attorney Grace. And I do want to acknowledge our Representative Viola Davis in the audience. Okay. Scott, you're trying to get her in trouble. All right, everybody, I'm going to give you one more minute, and we start the next panel. See how everybody after their chair, please. Representative Scholfield, Representative Scott, you're all listening for the panel. And thank you to all those who are watching us online, the YouTube channel Jaywalker Buzz. We will read your questions. All right, everybody, 30 more seconds. We're about to do the organizers activist panel. And interestingly, we're going to have two elected officials join the organizers activist panel.
It's okay, we can just show a little respect for our new panel and be seated for the next couple of minutes, please.
Yes, please go and seated.
Networking after. Thank you.
All right, Skeeter, you want to bring that over here? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being so patient with us. This organization is carrying Georgia votes. We are, as I said before, we're an advocacy group. We are the heartbeat of the Caribbean community that transforms political conversations. We are the go-to group that provides a unified voice and indispensable access on issues that face our culture. And then I'm encouraging everybody, even the gentlemen running out, to become a member of Caribbean Georgia Votes. There is a scan code at the table that you can scan and become a member. Now, we have, earlier on we had elected officials, we had lawyers, and the other people in society that make changes. Some people call them activists, some people call them organizers, some people call them rabble-rousers. Either way, I call them heroes. Because these are people that are constantly at work representing the community. Now, we've already introduced Representative Scholfield, raise your hand please. And we're going to introduce Representative Scott as well. Now, at the table right now, we have with us a young man by the name of Giovanni Serrano. Giovanni Serrano is a community organizer with the Georgia Latina Alliance for Human Rights. He has been organizing since 2016 to advance the undocumented students' access to higher education. GLAHR has allowed him to learn tools to run civic engagement campaigns and Know Your Rights campaigns to empower the Latino community in Georgia. His community is what motivates him. Everybody, please welcome Giovanni Serrano. And right beside Giovanni is attorney Grace, Gerald A. Grace. I was introduced to him online years ago, battling for our people. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then he was in Atlanta, and he was doing a great job of raising our voices. Who is he? Attorney Grace is a 1996 graduate of Woodward Academy. He furthered his studies at Oxford College of Emory University and Emory University, where he received his BA in 2000. After his time at Emory, Attorney Grace received JD in 2004 from the University of Cincinnati College of Law, the fourth oldest law school in the country. Attorney Grace began practicing law in the state of Georgia after passing the bar exam in the fall of 2004. Attorney Grace has had over 1,000 cases over his legal career. Attorney Grace is a well-respected litigator for handling high-profile cases. He represented numerous clients involved in the Atlanta Public School cheating trial, Georgia's longest trial. Further, Grace has handled countless high-profile cases featured in media outlets such as TV, ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN, Fox News here, TV1, WGCN. Yes, he's a celebrity. Community impact. His most notable case, Jamene helped launch the national anti-bullying movement and change the anti-bullying law in Georgia. Jamene her case was featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show in spring of 2009. Since then, Attorney Grace has traveled all across the country promoting the anti-bullying movement. He was recently a featured speaker at the second annual Federal Anti-Bullying Summit in Washington, D.C. Attorney Grace currently toured the Metro Atlanta school system with the Hot 7.9 Bullying is Not Hot Tour, spreading the anti-bullying call. Attorney Grace is committed to community service throughout Georgia. He was the first vice president of Atlanta of the NAACP and the former third vice president of chair of the Georgia NAACP. He's currently president of the Georgia NAACP. Attorney Griggs only served in numerous capacities for the state conference of Georgia NAACP, including the chair of criminal justice committee and the field director of district court in New Jersey. Further, Attorney Griggs has worked in partnership with the SCLC 100 ACLU, the Urban League Young Professionals, and numerous community groups that are committed to improving the community. Attorney Griggs has been fully supportive of carrying Georgia votes from the moment I made him aware of the organization. He has supported even movements happening in Florida to back the carrying community. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our panel of organizers and activists. Now, before we start this panel, I do want to share with you the news. That's an 11-year-old, and I'm not going to say her name, but one line, an 11-year-old child immigrant killed herself recently because she was bullied by her fellow students, seeing what the orange guy in the White House is saying about us, taking those taunts and things on her. So, we need to change the culture and the narrative about us immigrants. And it's not going to happen just by us, which is why I'm so glad we don't just have immigrants on this panel, or immigrant adjacent, because this conversation is a holistic conversation. So, let me start off by asking, going down the line, beginning with Representative Scott. What is your perspective of those executive orders that have come out, and how do you see handling
I thank you for the question about the 11-year-old girl that committed suicide because of her classmates bullying her at school, and she just couldn't take it anymore. First of all, as an educator, I do know that bullying goes on. But a lot of times, as educators, when we hear of bullying, you really have to look deep into it because, as you know, kids could be playing together one minute, and the next minute, kids could be fighting one another. And it goes back and forth, They friends today, and they friends tomorrow. So you really have to have a deep examination of whether someone is being bullied or not. But that type of bullying someone, telling that ISIS is coming to get them, I think that is something that all educators should look at very closely, because that is not something that we should play with at all. Because we do know the impact that it will have on a child. If they think school's supposed to be a safe place for kids, a safe place. And we have kids telling kids, oh, I'm gonna call ICE on you, I'm gonna call ICE and they're gonna come to your home. That should be first, and the child and the teacher know it should be stopped immediately. The child should be dealt with immediately. First of all, the child parent should be called in, and it should be a conversation about what is being said to the child. Now, a lot of times students do not tell their teachers that these things are happening. But they go home, sometimes they talk to their parents and let their parents know that what's going on, sometimes they may not. But if a teacher, you can kind of look at your kids because you should have a relationship with them that will let you know something is bothering their child and I need to find out what's going on with them. Because if you've been with that child for a long time and you know that child, you can tell that something's going wrong with one of your students. You can look at them and say, something must be went on yesterday or something must have happened last night. And you can call that child outside. And most times our kids love us. They willing to talk to us. If we really get down to the bottom of what's going on with them. Because it should never happen. And schools got to really be on the lookout for things like that because children are cruel to one another. They're very cruel to one another. And we can look for more of these things to happen, but we just hope that they do not happen to kids taking their life. But it was about communication. Schools gonna have these conversations. And I can say right now, they're really not happening. You look at the, number of kids in school and all depends on the kids you go to, or you work at, and you look at the demographics. In schools that I work in, we don't have, I said, maybe 1% could be of kids from, outside of, the state, so we don't really have that problem, but if it was a problem and it existed, I would look for the administrators to take it on with full speed, because it is against the law to bully kids in school. So that is something that communication needs to be dealt with from elementary school all the way up. A lot of times people say, oh, elementary, it needs to start at elementary school because kids are pulled to one another in pre-K. It starts at the very young age and goes up. But whatever you know, you hear in your home, you bring it outside of your home. And one thing about children, they gonna tell it, and they gonna tell the truth when they tell it. So, we all need to be cognizant of it as educators, and we really need to know when it is said to someone, we need to look into it. Not wait till tomorrow, we need to do it at the point in time. We need to take it on full speed and full head, and take it on right then, so that we can hope to eliminate what happened to that 11-year-old child, whatever happened again.
Thank you for the question. My heart goes out to her and her family. It's not the first time that I've dealt with a situation like that. Not in that particular manner when somebody was threatening to call ICE. But having dealt with the Jamene Rivera case, I know that bullying is a real serious issue. But I think we need to get to the heart of the underlying issue, and that's the growth of hate in this country and the otherization of people that immigrated to this country. As a sixth-generation Georgian, somebody who was brought to this country, our ancestors brought to this country not by our own choice. We recognize what's happening right now in this country. And as the president of the Georgia State Conference, we want all Americans and those who want to become Americans to understand that we will make civil rights and the protection of all rights our foremost priority. And so we will not allow the otherization. We will not allow the demonization of others for political gain. And so with that incident and other incidents that we see occurring around the state, we want to continue to amplify the voice of those who believe in those true American values, that this freedom is not only for us, but for everyone else that loves this country enough to immigrate to this country. And so I think the cure for all of this is a real conversation about what America is, what it will become, and the ultimate issue of the racism that has boiled up to the top again and is trying to otherize everyone other than rich white men.
Yes, so with us at the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, it is an unfortunate incident that took place, but also to take into consideration that the teachers knew about this bullying, but they failed to report it, to inform the family members. So it kind of shows you how this hate rhetoric is not only being brought up within our own kids, but also professors and teachers who are supposed to protect you, that are letting these things go by without making any type of report to the school. So there's a lot of things that are going on that put our communities and our youth in a state of mind that they don't belong here, that their family members are constantly being criminalized. There has been a study done by a student at Emory, a student young group from our organization and from Ter Familia, that basically conducted how anti-immigrant legislation impact not only their mental well-being, but also how they feel about being a U.S. citizen and how they can contribute to society. They feel like they are second-class citizens, and that's our U.S. child that are here, and they feel all the fear that their community members face. But it's something that we also, even with our young kids, everything that we're facing is also important to take it into consideration, have those conversations, making sure that they feel empowered, that who they are, their roots, that they are powerful human beings, that they are the descendants emperors, kings, and that they need to also continue and represent themselves on who they are. So something that we as Lara, we are empowering, but also for our young kids to continue organizing, organize the schools, report those crazy teachers. It's time for, our youth to also continue taking power and really, not only educate themselves, but like take back the power that belongs to the youth. We are so fortunate that we have seen this incident. Glad we have many youth that we work with, and this is an issue that for many of them really hit home. We are just trying to empower our youth so that they can have the tools to fight everything that is going on at this moment.
Thank you. So I'm both angry and I'm sad at the fact that a student had to take their life, a 12-year-old, because they were not protected. We heard earlier about the main issue and their playbook is to create this narrative of fear. So if we make you afraid, then you'll start acting and reacting instead of being proactive. And so the school systems, yes, should have protected the bullying, but this has been going on for a long time. So the question goes back to what tools do we need to have to not only change the narrative, but to give the students and their families. The student didn't feel safe enough to talk about the bullying. The student didn't feel safe enough to bring it home to the parent. The parent didn't feel safe enough to, even if they knew, to try to do anything. So what's wrong with this system? So you've got to start to, again, bring the narrative to change that this is a human right. You don't get to decide who gets to stay, who goes, based on the fact that you've changed the or you're changing the congressional level where decisions are being made. So we're trying to fight this in the courts, but the basic people don't have the money to fight in the courts. So where is the system or the safety net that we need to be providing in spaces of law enforcement, legislators, federal departments to create this place where they can get their needs met? That starts with people in this room. You've got to be able to change the narrative, to stand together to say the kids know what their rights are, the parents know who to go to if they get in trouble, the organizations that are here may have to help and do pro bono or do some kind of way that they can get the resources to go into the court system and fight this out. The legislators have to stand up, speak truth to power, not just speak truth, take the action behind the truth.
Okay, so next question is, those are great suggestions. What are you or your organization doing actively in response to all that's going on right now?
I'll start and I'll go back down. As a legislator, we write policy. So Representative Viola Davis, Representative Sandra Scott, and myself, we're always looking at ways that what can we do policy-wise to dismantle, disband, or repeal things that are already in motion or create new laws to protect people. So that's it. Again, we talked earlier about the 10 limit of legislation, but silence is the voice. So even if I wanted to write 10 bills that protect us, we would not be able to fire them. So organizations need to speak up and say, hey, you're silencing the voice of the people of democracy. The people that were elected to represent them under the Capitol cannot be heard. Therefore, it's creating, intensifying a cycle of fear. So we as legislators are in the community educating. We're at the state capitol fighting. We're speaking truth to power saying this is not gonna work. So that's what we do. We're doing our part. I appeal to those that are listening to watching. Instead of talking with everybody else of what's not being done, ask yourself, where do I need to plug in and with who to help us? When you didn't vote and we didn't get the people we needed in office, you tied our hands. So we are on our jobs. I need you to get on your job and start aligning with these organizations to change the narrative, to show them that even if we're afraid, we're going to move in fear and numbers to change this system.
At the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, we have been doing Know Your Rights trainings all over the state of Georgia. Our director, Layne, vehicles has been going to South Georgia, Claxton, Dixon, we have been all the way to Athens, Greensboro, just sharing this information, and we're so glad that community members have trusted us to open those spaces and share this information. So using these packages, feel free to take one or two, because we are glad to understand that we are just a small organization. There is no organization big enough at the state level, at the national level, that can really stop deportations and everything that is taking place. It is us, the people united, that we can organize, mobilize, and protect our own people. We also have empowered community members to go back to our roots. Sometimes when we do Know Your Rights training, one of the questions that I ask, do you know everybody in your neighborhood? Do you know everybody in the street? Create those community watches within your neighborhood. Because sometimes when we go to white neighborhoods, within like a few minutes or an hour, the police have already been calling us. So let's try to create our own version of community watch to protect ourselves. Like, who's coming into our neighborhood? If we see a strange car, we can communicate with every member, because we are members. We don't have to like each other. But maybe the person that is looking around, like who's coming out, can see an ICE agent and can tell us, hey, there's a police that is suspicious or a car that is suspicious. Take the precautions that you need. It might be an ICE agent. And we created this community watch group within our communities. We have more than 1,500 members that have been added to community watch groups in different counties, Gwinnett, the Southeast region as well. But now we also have developed a rapid response teams called ICE Chasers, where like U.S. citizens and white allies are able to, if we see an ICE agent reporting trying to do a detention, we cannot stop a detention. But just by being there, documenting everything that is taking place, they behave a different way. And we encourage our community members to never open the door to any law enforcement or ICE agent if they don't have a judicial warrant of arrest signed by a judge. ICE misinforms our community, use different strategies to lie to our people. If they bring warrants of arrest that they sign, municipal warrants of arrest that they sign on their own, under the Constitution, then that does not force them to force us to open the door. And we told community members, if they ask you that they have a warrant of arrest, ask them to show it to you. If they don't want to show it, keep asking that you're not going to open the door. And we tell community members to really feel empowered, but we also understand that when it comes to the time, like our own fear is going to make us even open the door. We have a community member that she put a whole couch between her and the door because she was afraid that she was going to open the door. So it comes to that point. But also situations changes when you're in your car. And we also ask community members and allies to pressure local law enforcement or city council to take a stance. I know we have HB 1105 that kind of forces different governments to collaborate with ICE, but there is still ways. When people get elected to office, we go there to serve, to find the loopholes of how we can protect our people too as well. So we're asking everybody, pressuring, and also, we are really blessed that we have the opportunity to work with different organizations too as well. That we have been working on the ground for many years, like Project South, with my Chafinca, Mbaji, and Refugio. So we're not this by ourselves. We know that we can do this by ourselves. We are working in coalitions, and I know right now we are working on coming back, we're starting conversations with each other, so we can kind of know what everybody's doing, so then we can know, hey, what are we missing? How we can better strategize together. So it's one of the things that we as Lara is doing. We're strategizing. A director right now is in Arizona for strategy planning, what we can do, because there is so much that is uncertain, and we're just trying to inform ourselves as well so that we can react the right information to our community as well.
So, as a Georgia NAACP, we're the oldest civil rights organization in the country. And so what we currently have been doing is partnering with organizations that do this work on the ground. We've been with Law for years, Project South and others. When the first wave of this attack and the first administration happened. And so we are continuing to partner and build power We're also registering more voters to get prepared for the midterms and municipal races that are coming up at the end of this calendar year, and of course, next year with municipal races. But most importantly, we filed lawsuits. We are fighting them in the courtroom on all of the attacks on civil rights. Whether that's the issues that are happening with mass deportation, the issues that are happening with the attacks on history, the attacks on facts. And so we are resolute in pushing forward with that. And so with the 100 units that we have in the state of Georgia, we just had our legislative day at the Capitol not last week, the week before last, and we are going to continue to partner with elected officials to push policy. But I think ultimately what we're doing is getting people ready to get in some good and necessary trouble. Because the only thing this administration understands is power. And the power is in the people. And so we have to continue to remind people as we come to community groups, as we continue to engage with the clergy, we continue to engage with civil rights and social justice organizations, is we're going to have a convening in the streets. Because the only way that we're going to raise awareness for the millions of Americans who are sitting by in shell shock is that they have the power. They have the power to stop ICE. They have the power to stop the attacks that are happening with federal workers. They have the power to stop the gutting of the Department of Justice. They have the power to tell an individual we don't have kings in this country. We have people that are elected to represent the people. And so I think with the NAACP, our main focus is to remind people who we are, where our rights come from, and that we don't take our rights without a fight. And when we fight, we win.
Could I make one point though? If you're not in a permanent immigration status, wouldn't go on the streets at this point right now. But you could support from the back, from, behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Because if you go to the streets and get arrested and you're on TPS or something like that, it could solve the problem. Representative?
Okay, what I would say is that, I think communication is what we must do. We must try to communicate to the people on every hand. And as he said, the people that do not have immigration status, people that are afraid, hopefully some of the family members that do have it will be able to come out and join us in this fight and to help their people that are in their home get the citizenship, get the green cards they need so that they won't be deported. But we're at a pivotal point in our life where we're going to have to come together, and we need people to come together that is ready to fight. Down in the General Assembly, we must have legislators that are ready to fight, ready to stand up and speak out against injustice and stand for what is right. And we know that what they're doing now in the United States is not right. And we got to have legislators, people that write policy, write laws, that are willing to stand up and put the laws on the table and to fight for them. But again, we need all hands on deck. We need all hands on deck. We can't do it alone. That's why when the call to action comes, we need everybody to fill that capital. They have not seen, I've been down there, this is my 15th year. I have not seen that capital taken over by African American people. They had the other day when they had the people got laid off at the CDC, we see groves of them in that Capitol taking over. And that's what they need to see from us. We can put the bills on the table, we can have the bills put on the table, but we need for our people to come out and testify against bills or for the bills. And we do not get that as elected officials. We got to have the buy-in from the people. The buy-in from the people. We don't need, at some point, to take over, let them know we not going along with this bill that you have, that tort reform is one. We need our people out in roads to say, we not gonna put up with that. Because when they don't see us, you know what they say? Oh, they don't care. We gonna do what we want to do. They don't even care about themselves. They don't even come out and testify. They don't even come out so we can hear what they want to say, what they have to say. And we gonna go ahead and do what we gonna do. This is a joint effort. We need all hands on deck. It is time for us to say, hey, I'm not gonna work today, I need to go to the Capitol. It is time for us to take off when we need for people to take off and come. We don't know it may be, we may get the notice that morning that we're gonna have to meet it. And when the message of the call go out to the organization, they don't need to put it out, we don't need to have people to come down to the Capitol and let them know that we're not taking this anymore because we're not going back. I'm not going back. And I don't think anybody in here wants to go back. And so we don't have to stand up and fight. I'm ready and willing to fight any day. I have always been a fighter. Ever since I was a little girl, that's why I got so many butt whoopings as a child. Because I have always been ready to fight. Have always said, no, you ain't gonna talk to my people like that. Always stood up. And so that's what we need. We got to have a call for people to come to action. We got to have calls for when we need you to come to your house. That's your house down there. And they trying to take it over like it's theirs. It's not their house, it's our house. When you think about it, everything they got it on the backs of our people. Off our backs. And we cannot just sit back and relax and let them think that they're going to take what we have worked for and what we have done. So we all got to be in this together. And it's time that we continue to stand up and speak out against this injustice. And the legislature got to come on one accord and they got to be ready to stand and fight for the people of Georgia. And if your legislator in your district not ready to stand up and fight for you, then you need to send them home and find somebody that's going to come and fight for you.
Representative? So I'm going to add, I want to just add on to what Attorney Griggs said about the power that you have. We have economic power, people. If we stop and shut down places and hurt my colleague Viola Davis always says, you got to hit them in the wallets. If you stop supporting the economy in this state, we're going to find that there'll be different conversations at the table. If you stop bringing your going to work in a capacity where there are people laying off people and then you getting all this work done on you, and then in 3 months they're going to come back and say you're unqualified and fire you, you're going to have to start working with these organizations now that are talking about workplace justice. And we're going to have to strategize and execute on how do we take these workplaces back. So you've got the power. It's now working, and Attorney Griggs, I also look at you and say, what is the NAACP doing to empower the people so they know, you said we have the power, but most people don't know how to activate that power.
So I just left the meeting with the CAD County General Membership meeting, and I went to Atlanta's Black History Month meeting, and the messages continue the same. We're educating people in real time what it's going to take to move the pain into power, into purpose. So we are training them every single day. But I think that what's incumbent upon what the association has to do is to be the champion that the association has always been. And that's why we stood outside with Plaza Fiesta with the biggest protest I've seen in a long time to push back against these deportations. And, you know, our brothers and sisters from the Latino community, Spanish community, and of course our Caribbean brothers and sisters are on the front lines, and we are standing shoulder to shoulder with them. And I would agree, the ones that can't protest, they need to protest. Because here's the thing, they are coming for each and every one of us. we can't afford to be quiet. You know, the orange man in Washington is not discriminating upon who he's passing out the pain to. And so what I think that we need to do, especially as an association, one of the things we did last Saturday is we have a Black Consumer Advisory. We are highlighting the corporations who have not reversed on DEI and telling African Americans and people of color $1.7 trillion worth of buying power being removed from one group of people and put to another group of people that are supporting diversity, equity, inclusion, who are supporting the fact that human rights are civil rights. That is one way that even for the people who can't protest can send a message economically. And again, it's not a boycott, it's a buy-in. And so what we need to do is make our money speak for our people and our values. There seems to be this great belief up in Washington that Black and brown people don't push forward this country economically. Well, I think we need to show them better than we can tell them. You know, this is our Montgomery moment. And for those that don't know what the Montgomery moment means, I mean, Black people stopped riding the bus for 381 days. Maybe it's time for us to redirect our spending to organizations that will support these initiatives, and everybody else gets to feel the pain that we're feeling in our community. So that's one of the things that we are doing, just to add a few.
And by the way, to this point, Target, which is one of the companies that gave to the orange guy in Washington, Secretary said, Target, we have made a stance against Target, and they've lost $15.7 billion in market share, 22% because of that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 1 month. Now imagine if you did that consistently and you turn all that money towards organizations that are of us and supportive. I'm going to repeat, of us and supportive. Okay, Giovanni, you use a term that's not normally used when, well, it's used among activists like you and Derrick, but it's a community that we don't normally use the term human rights when we're talking about immigrant rights. Do me a favor, expand on that for the audience. Where are you coming from when you say that?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we have at Lara is that we want to empower our community to fight for the civil and human rights when it comes to like for them to recognize and respect who we are. You know, we don't want you just to see us as economic value, but also as human beings that have families that are impacted, but at the same time to also recognize that we are here and that we exist. I think for many years, they have always looked and the conversation has always been how much immigrants contribute to the economy. But it's not just economically that we contribute to the economy. We contribute to the culture. We contribute to the diversity, to the different knowledges and expertise that are in different cities and different states. So we, for human rights, we are also fighting to as well to make sure that even open opportunities, you know, are not denied. We have, and last year in Union City, they were denying members of our community to open their utility accounts because they didn't have a social security number. We sent a letter, community members pressure, they changed their policy, right? So for them to recognize us that we're not just people that contribute to the economy, but we are the human beings and we deserve the dignity and respect that we deserve as a community, and that live there, we have the right to live, the right to freedom, the right to speech, and kind of like empowering communities in that sense. But it's not, we also have the effort when what we do to empower our communities is we are like a broken record. Constantly, we have community meetings and we tell our members that we have constitutional rights, that doesn't matter what status you have the right to defend your home, that the Constitution applies to you as well. That constant repetition is what continues to empower our community, but also our youth. There is a city council in Cairo, Georgia, South Georgia, that they introduced an ordinance to ban, the Mexican flag. Because he said that every person that was wearing the flag that was carrying the flag that was not the U.S. was an undocumented person. Right? So that's their vision, that's their mentality. You know, they don't see us as people that contribute to society or that our kids are U.S. citizens, but it's also to empower even our own youth, to not forget where we come from, to not forget our language, to not forget our dialect, to have that promise of where we come from, because if our youth lose our culture, how we live, where we're from, then we're losing the battle. You know, so that's also how we recognize our community members. You are a Latino from Mexico, Guatemala, you stand proud as a Guatemalan American, you stand proud as a Mexican American, you stand proud as a Nicaraguan American. Be proud of who you are. You know, and I think that's really not only recognize us as people that contribute, but recognizing who we are, the diversity that we have, and everything that we contribute to the society.
Excellent. And this is going to be my last question on the road to audience and to those online and the YouTube channel they work with us. The communities that exist in Georgia, I mean, African Americans, Latin community here, definitely powerful since the 60s. Caribbean community really started to become powerful in the 80s, Latinos as well. Asian and African communities, like from Africa, became very powerful like in the 90s. I think I can safely say these communities have not historically been talking to each other. And as such, we have lost out on a synergy that can be tremendously powerful. In this time, we have no choice but to come together, because like Attorney was saying, it's coming for all of us. So here's the question. From all you can answer, or one you don't know. How do we get to a stage where we are actually truly supporting each other and working together?
So, yesterday, one of the greatest civil rights leaders would have turned 85 years old, John Lewis. And John always said that we have to recognize that we are all a part of a global house. You know, I know that in my community, there sometimes feels like it's just the black folks that are fighting. But when we recognize that the existential threat that we are facing right now, both in this country and in the world house, is the rise of white supremacy, we have to recognize that there's a global threat. And so I think once we realize that and we stop being in our silos to say, oh, well, this is just happening over here, or this is just happening over there, and recognize that there's an existential threat to everyone, I think we can all work together. You know, as you said, in the 60s, well, the 50s, the 40s. Okay, since we got here, you know, black Americans have been under constant attack. So we know how to adjust in the attack. But we also understand that when they aren't attacking us, they're generally attacking somebody else. We have to recognize it's in our best interest to protect the other that they are attacking, because they are going to attack us. And so I think we can all learn from that. You know, the best advice I ever got, I'll never forget this. I was 18 years old, and it was the first time I left this country. And so I flew from Hartsfield, Jackson, and touched down in Nassau. And when I got off the plane, strangely, I felt home for some reason. And so fast forward to about 4 years later, I was sitting in that same home in Nassau, my best friend's from the Bahamas, and his father cut on the TV and was watching CNN. And then he said to me, he said, Gerald, have y'all not figured it out over there in America yet? I said, what do you mean? He said, the entire world is watching y'all to figure out that y'all recognize that the movement in the 60s affected the entire world. So now, let's have another movement like the 60s where we can affect the entire world. That's where we are right now. So when our brothers and sisters from all over the world are recognizing that there is a consequential threat coming from the White House, focused on everybody else that they view as not American, well, then the original Americans, you know, the ones that were brought over from chains, the ones who were indigenous to the land, you know, the ones who lived in Mexico, when Mexico went from Canada all the way down to Central America. You know, we need to have a conversation that no one's illegal on stolen land with stolen people, and we need to get real loud. So I think once we recognize what John was saying, that we're all in a global house, and what happens in the house affects everybody, now we stop closing the door to everybody else that's in the global house, and we send a message to the folks who want to make the global house only one color, that we're not going to have that happen.
Anybody else want to say that? Yeah, so for us, and as immigrants, when we come to the United States, it's really important to learn the history, of this country, because right now, everything that is being taught in the school system, it doesn't show, the true history of the United States. So it's even to empower our youth so that for them to recognize that we have been working with different communities, the Brown Berets, the Young Lords, they learn everything from the Black Panthers, so we as community members have been working together, sharing knowledge, even all the work that we do, all the strike that we do is based in the civil rights movement, talking to our people, making sure that we develop those connections. So in reality, we have been working with each other, but through history, they have erased how we have worked with each other. And I think to this moment, we have to fully bring all that energy back, or even expand, all that work that we need together, and really recognize who we are, and understand that an attack to anybody of us is an attack to our own as well. So we have the case, the local road, and where we help community members that any harm that you commit against another person is a harm that you are committing towards yourself as well. To recognize that another person within your community, if they're being impacted, you also are being impacted. So to understand that we're not just, by the census, how they classify us by different groups, but we are a community that is impacting many issues, but at the same time, when it comes to the criminalization of our bodies, they criminalize I would like to say minority because we are the majority altogether, but they are constantly criminalizing us. They're constantly taking our rights away. Many of our youth are being criminalized too as well. So even to recognize too as well that, when we look at, even legislation that are protecting our kids, sometimes those legislation are being brought up to take away the power of our youth. A power of youth that are learning to work with each other, that are recognizing that we cannot do this by ourselves, and we're not working together as a unit. And even as the elders and the younger people, it's like to understand that we cannot do this alone. As I mentioned earlier before, we cannot do this just as the Latinos together or separated by different communities. It has to be all of us. And something that I always learned from the Mexican president is, it's all of us or none of us. It don't matter any legislation. I'm not gonna always only benefit certain people. I want all my people to be benefited by this legislation. Not just a few. Because once we compromise a certain percentage of our community, we're compromising who we are and what we stand for. So no compromises, it's all of us or none of us. So it's something that we are trying to.
New slogan is all of us or none of us. I love that. All right, anybody in the audience, anybody on the line have any questions for our man?
He just mentioned about black people and their culture,
We have just mentioned about black people coming together and over and spending, that's the real thing in another sense.
But in another sense, I was thinking, why can't we create our own industry and our own business so we can depend on each other and have our own resources that we don't have to depend on the federal government for anything? Because that is it, they have us pay for absolutely everything people can't see. But I see. So what about us having cooperative or one industry coming together. But I see that a lot of blacks fail to do that because somebody told me a Kenyan man said to you, you know what is the most powerful dollar? It is a black dollar. When I heard that, I know it's actually telling me something how powerful our dollar is today. So what is what's saying about target? If this happens to any other corporate company, it's going to send them a serious message.
God visit.
I hear you, and I think that's been the message for a long time. I think this is going to the moment in history where it's going to demand a response. So when we start doing that, I think there'll be a birth and a rebirthing of things that we didn't thought that will come together and emerge out of the space, businesses, industrial, we're in a new age, technology. You know, again, I go back when, and I agree with him, when one person the offer, I agree with what the attorney says, that he starts at the White House, but it's coming to your house. Just don't open the door when he gets here.
I think we need to get back to that Martin Luther King spirit.
Well, we do have the Martin Luther King spirit. I think what happens is we keep looking for Martin Luther King, but the rebirthing of the spirit is being shown and executed in different ways. They forced our hand now to have to respond. You know, we were complacent, we were doing the leadership, but we've been on this battlefield for a while, asking for people to join. Now, people realize they don't have a choice because it did knock on their door, and they're kicking it in. I wanted to make 2 points, and when you talked about history and how they are trying to erase our history, the three of us, and we know it's, you know, again, for this month of Black History, well, every day we wear clothing that reflects our history because they try to erase it. So if they're taking the flag away from the kids, then they need to be dressing in the colors of their flag. There are 99 ways to get things done. In this space, we're going to be innovative and creative on how to move the system. I'm going to say this so that you have another action item. So on Monday, the 24th of February, this coming Monday, we will be hosting a press conference at the Capitol at 12 noon. And it's centered on the rights of protecting warehouse workers. We know that people that are working in warehouses are working in some substandard work conditions. And so this piece of legislation, as well as the activation of the press conference, means that we need people that are working in warehouses, whether it's Amazon, or I'm not going to name the other ones that are, but be there to stand with us, to tell your stories, so that we can start putting demands to make them improve and protect the rights of warehouse workers. There are heat-related issues that people are dying going to work. They're not getting water stations at their job. So we're standing for workers' rights on Monday, 12 noon, inside the Capitol on the stairs. Make sure you're there.
So I wanted to follow up on what you said about having that Dr. King type of mentality. We have to recognize we're in Georgia, the birthplace of Dr. King. But we also have to recognize the leaders that came before Dr. King. You keep talking about we need to come together and build infrastructure. We did that. Post-Reconstruction, they burned it to the ground. We did that in the 20s. They burned it to the ground. So what we need to understand, we have to be more intentional in how we rebuild it this time. We build digital infrastructure because the African American community and all the communities that we're having conversation about, it's not that they just didn't build it or they didn't do it. There was active opposition. Another thing that's going to happen at the state capitol, I believe on Monday, is a celebration of 33 state legislators that were seated after the war in Georgia. There were 33 black legislators who were removed and not seated. We have to know this history so we know what the game plan is so that we can push against it. I agree. And that's one of the reasons why the NAACP has a list on its website now, the Black Consumer Guide. So on the NAACP list, we're going to list all the black businesses, all the businesses of color that have stood by diversity, equity, inclusion, so we can continue to channel that buying power. But we also have to understand there's an active force trying to erase history. They erase history, they take your identity, and then they whitewash it.
we have to make sure that doesn't happen.
All right, well, I'm gonna have to wrap things up here, but before I go, Representative, make sure we get information on the press conference. There are many Caribbean people who work in warehouses, so we can definitely get that out to them. That being said, the point that you're making about an independent, be operating in a manner that is not impacted by the structure. And what he says is right, what we're trying to attempt to raise history. In the early 1900s, we had the Garvey movement. And the point of that movement, well, one of the core points of that movement, was the creation of an economy that was based on black people here, Caribbean, and Africa. The reason for that reality would be that those who wanted the destruction of black people couldn't touch that because it was outside of the country. Because, like we had Greenwood, Black Wall Street, and they destroyed it. But they couldn't destroy it because it was right in the system. So, the coming together of all of us with an international perspective could really create a different reality where we actually protect the economy that we build. We could keep on talking about this forever. We are over time. So I'm going to ask all of you to give a round of applause to this amazing. I'd also like to thank everybody that supported us today. There's personal financial services from Africa, from Liberia. Also, DLHR, NAACP, and we are Caribbean Georgia for we are a heartbeat of the Caribbean community that transforms political conversations. We're the go-to group that provides a unified voice and indispensable access and issues that shape our future. We have two representatives, we have an organizer, we have an attorney. Did an amazing job, thank you so much. I would like to invite Pastor Rodney and Pastor Sion come to the podium. The church here, Rock of Ages Lutheran Church, is who hosted us here, wonderfully took care of us today, even though we went over time, educating Pastor Rodney that, sometimes we go over time, that's how it is, so, but I want to thank you for giving us this venue. You guys seem to be doing this more often, right?
Yes. Yep.
So Attorney Griggs, representatives, organizers, listen. We're going to do this. We're going to keep educating our people. We're going to build. We have to invite as many people. We got to really mobilize properly. I'd like to thank Caribbean Focus TV, Jay Walker Buzz, and all of the members of Caribbean Georgia Vote that's here, Tracy Letson, and then Lemon, the two N's, because you got to say them twice, it'd be so nice. We do have Pastor Rodney. Austin Thompson was here earlier, Marsha Williams was here earlier, Cheryl Fegg was here earlier, Debs George was here earlier. Thank you all for your hard work. Oh, and Jack, the Vice President, and Jack Sherman was here earlier. So, this is Pastor Randy's home, and our spiritual guide, Pastor Sion. We are in a place of the spiritual and divine. So I'd like to leave you gentlemen to leave us all for the night.
All right, I'm going to pray then the resident.
Oh, sorry, I'm Jason Walker, I'm president of Caribbean Church of Post. Sorry.
I'm going to pray then the resident pastor will close us off, and we're going to be well very on our way. And there are two things you to ask yourself from the information today. Individually, are you sinking? Are you surviving? Or are you thriving? I want to think on the side that we're trying from the information that we're separating for transformation. Father God, we thank you for the time spent in this place today. We thank you for this information that was, oh God, given unto us. We pray, oh God, that you have not given us a spirit of fear, but you have given us a spirit of love, power, and one of a sound mind. I pray, God, you will bind us together with a cord of love that cannot be broken. That we will be inseparable. The church grew more, oh God, when they were in persecution. So we know in the time of this persecution against humanity, we're going to be strengthened, we're going to purify, and we're going to be strong. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. President Pastor.
I've been pastor here for 32 years. In those 32 years, this congregation has welcomed refugees.
this week will be the last refugees that we will see for the foreseeable future as a result by our government. I can only say this, and it goes back to a pastor in Germany who experienced some things that are sounding like they're happening again. And that is what happens when a country looks the other way and allows totalitarian folks to take away the rights that you and I have until we recognize one day they're gone. And what he said was this: silence in the face of evil is itself evil. It is time, O Lord, for your people to speak up and to speak out and to speak against the injustice that is taking place in our country this day. And Lord, we ask that you would give us the power and the strength and the courage and the perseverance to keep speaking out until change takes place. I'll simply leave with this. I am 66 plus years old. I was born in Huntsville, Alabama. When I was born, the birth notice in the newspaper had white births and colored births. I was born into a world of Jim Crow. I remember visually seeing colored bathrooms, knowing that there were places that folks of color weren't allowed, even though technically they might be legally allowed. They knew they were not places they could be. And as I became a teenager and a younger 20 person, I just assumed those days were going to disappear, and we were going to progressively become more of a society that recognized that we're all created in the image of God and all loved by God. And it is deeply disheartening for me to recognize that my age group, and particularly my particular skin color, I won't say I'm wealthy, but I am white, that our folks have utterly failed to do what needs to be done to make sure that this country upholds the beautiful ideals that we think that we are guaranteed. And I'll just leave it with this, folks. A law is only as good as the character of the folks who are in charge of making sure that it applies to all people equally. And if we do not speak now, we may not have the ability to speak later. So we've got to speak. So, with that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, President. Guys, thanks for coming tonight. We will keep informed, make sure we have the information. We will pass out. We will email everybody to know your activity. And we will definitely let you know that Attorney Gray and Giovanni starts by the new government movement. But let's stay together, let's support each other, and let's communicate. Caribbean votes. Please.